Grand Rising, everybody. It's Monday morning. How we doing? Y'all got that extra hour of sleep if you're in America and most places in America. We are going to talk about today something that I find quite irritating. I always hear people talking about something. Oh, Jesus is black and the Bible is African. Well, at about 5 minute mark, we're going to really get started. So this is a live. So I give people about 5 minutes to get in before we get started with the subject matter. And I am Coach Renz. I am a deconstructionist from religion as well as just learner of awful lot of philosophical things as well as just other stuff. I was on the Cigar Lounge, serial entrepreneur. I used to own the Cigar Lounge, popcorn shop, gave all that up, and now we are doing this full time. I like having control of my time. So I will be smoking a cigar. If that bothers you, then this is not for you. Yeah. So, Grand Rising Dwayne. So we have an interesting subject matter today to discuss. Probably gonna piss off some of my own people today. Grand Rising Mike. But I think this is an important thing that for everybody, especially Black people, to realize in their transitioning process. Because this was one of those things I gravitated towards for a little while as myself. And I was like, oh, Jesus was black. Oh, the Bible is African spirituality just converted over. We're going to hell with that today. Grand Rising Michael as well. Y'all had a good weekend. How was your weekend? I know my weekend was great. Had a good time this weekend. Met a guy. We did a little, it wasn't even on purposely done. Angelina just started recording this little impromptu video. He said, let's piss him off. Yep. Did an impromptu video. I got to talk to that guy later on the day. We're going to do his former pastor. We're going to do a live together. I don't know if you guys saw that video. I'm pretty sure y'all saw the video with the woman that they were claiming to be Palestinian, but she was actually Egyptian. Boy, I tell you, so many people don't listen to the whole video and then make comments. I'm like, did you even watch the whole video? Did you even hear what I said? That video is killing me. It's killing me. I can't tell you how many times I had to go in there and tell people, go watch the whole video. Go watch the whole video. People have these short attention time span. It's like they watch a little bit of a video. Oh, I know what it's all about. Grand Rising. Another salt tick. Is that what they say? Oh, another Salt Lake. Gotcha. I do what I can. I do what I can. Grand Rising Brett. Oh, Dwayne, you love that video? Man, I'm telling you, I spent like half my weekend, or half, not the weekend, but this morning, I spent half the time this morning saying pretty much the same message. Watch the full video. Watch the full video. Yeah. Because, oh, you're a liar. Oh, you dumb. That woman, you stupid. You fall into the... I'm like, hey, watch the whole video. I actually said exactly what you just said in your comment. And the name calling, that's part of it. No, most of the time I smoke outside. Grand Rising Marguerite. Oh, we've hit our 5-minute mark, so it's time to get started with the actual video itself, the subject matter. And we try to hold strong to the subject matter for at least the first hour. And then, of course, we talk about anything, any subject matter thereafter. So today, one of the things that I've seen consistently on a lot of commentary is that Jesus is black. Jesus was black. If he ever existed, he was black. And that Christianity is an African religion. The Bible is an African book, and it came out of Africa. And then, the Romans or the Caucasians took the Bible and corrupted it. What's up? Grand Rising Kurt, what's up? So let's right off the bat, let's just go ahead and dispel some of that. But I think it's very important for people who are deconstructing from Christianity to realize one of the hardest things to realize for some black people is the fact of you can get stuck on your way out trying to make Christianity racial, make your spirituality racial. Say, okay, it's black. It's, Jesus was black and it was true African spirituality. And Africa is a huge ass continent, right? With so much diversity in it. What is African spirituality? What part are we talking about? There's a lot. There's a huge space there to talk about. So there's no one thing. And we're going to talk about that. That video was put out to make people hate. Yeah, it was. It was put out to make people hate the Palestinians. Grand Rising Marcus, Grand Rising Jeremy. So you can get stuck on your way out of Christianity and spend more time in it than you really want to if you allow yourself to use racial tensions and racial makeups today to define spirituality. And that was one of those things that I'm gonna tell you guys. It was one of those things that I almost fell into in the late 80s, early 90s. I was, the Africa with the red, the black, the green, X-Clan, Tribe Called Quest, Brand Nubians, Public Enemy, KRS-One, BDP. I was, that song, that song. I'm black, y'all. I'm black, y'all. I'm black, the black, y'all. That was me. That was all the way me. I didn't listen to. You couldn't get me to listen to any other kind of music. I wouldn't listen to no damn Miami bass and none of them songs. Wasn't gonna hear it. I had this time frame. I'm ISIS Papers, Malcolm X autobiography, Black Robes, White Justice, all that, right? All that. And that was like all that I listened to. That was all that I listened to. I've always liked cowboy hats. That's all I listened to. Right? It's all I read. It's all I read. I was on ship with the Navy and my staff sergeant was this racist dude, and I was going at him toe to toe every opportunity. I'm going at his ass, right? Going at him. Grand Rising. Rick, if y'all saw the video with me and the former pastor talking, that's Rick Super Shepherd right there. We're gonna go live. But so I'm on there, I'm on a ship, and I'm all into my blackness. But that blackness made me force this idea that Jesus, because I was still trying to keep Jesus back then. Still trying to keep Jesus. Talking 1990, 91. Still trying to keep Jesus. Going to Desert Storm, but I'm traveling. I'm in the Marine Corps. I'm on the Navy ship. I'm getting to travel. I'm getting to see some places. Getting to go to the places that you read about. And then going to them places, you get a good opportunity to learn some stuff. And one of the things that I had to learn and come to a realization is that first thing, there was no such thing as being black until about 1,000. What year we're in? So until about 500-600 years ago, There was no such thing as far as being black. Do y'all realize? I don't think most people don't realize there was no such thing as being black as a racial group. It was no. You had an ethnicity and a nationality. That's it. So our definition of what is black, what is white, what is yellow, red, all those things we've created. All right. So another Salt Lick, I'm not going through all that. I'm not an actor here to placate things of that nature. But if you want to talk about the subject matter, you can. I think we need to ask ourselves where it all begins, like what civilization began in the Garden of Eden, where it is Eden. We're going to get there. Is that a thought that's in the brain? So many layers on the onion. Oh, we're going to peel the hell out this onion. The Portuguese introduced the concept of race as a means of absolving their perchance for enslaved people who didn't look like them. Black is negative. The correct way to say it is melanated Caribbean. Black is only negative depending upon how you're expressing it. If I say that I'm in the black and I'm talking about finances, is it positive or negative? 7. See, there's perspective, which is your individual perspective. Wait a minute, no, there's perception, which is your individual perception of things. But then there's the perspective, to be able to stand back and look at the whole. When you stand back and look at the whole, black is not negative. Everything originates out of blackness. Without blackness, you have no creation. There's more blackness in space than there is light. That negative thought process comes out of fear. Fear of darkness and animals, but it's really the fear of animals because you can't see them. And as far as the Portuguese, it's a combination of the Portuguese as well as the Brits as well. You got they get their part too. Don't leave them out of it. It is being used to make us feel bad. That's part of the process. So y'all throwing so many questions right now, y'all but you're asking questions that are valid, so I gotta stop and answer them. I thought there was a rumor that of Jesus and some of the 12 followers crossing back over to the Mediterranean to Spain, so I can see that Jesus come from there, maybe even North Africa, and the motherland or human beings lost knowledge and worse. We lost a lot because of hatred conquering. I see. I've never read a story about them crossing over to Spain, not Jesus, but there is the idea of Mary Magdalene and some of them crossing over into France and then up into Spain. But they still would have originated out of the Levant area. The German and the English, right? Black, the unification of color, white, the absence of color. This is true. Right? Black and white is based on contrast. Now, I can say this. There are no such thing as actual white people as a race because they do have melanin. They're not white. They're just very low melanin. And it is very difficult to find someone who is black. Like everybody is a whole bunch of shades in between. So race in itself is a farce. Now that was created because I've got to keep going. It was created. Oh, you like the video, Jeremy? Rick Super Shepherd is the former pastor up there that I did the video with. He's on the live right now in the comments on Facebook. So in the ancient world, they didn't have anything such as black and white. You were of your ethnicity or your nationality. But when we look at it historically, if this Jesus character would have existed 2,000 years ago, and yes, there were 4 different people, at least according to Josephus, who were named Yeshua, who took issue with the Romans. right? Now, Grand Rising. Oh, if I didn't say Grand Rising to you and you not popped on, Grand Rising, all the new everybody who's come on. There, I want you to think about this. Like somebody said earlier, if we go back as far as we possibly can right now in the Levant area, right now though, actually, and I'm working on a longer video, it'll be a recorded video about Göbekli Tepe. That we're talking 12,000 years ago. 12,000 years ago. We actually right now have no idea what the people of Göbekli Tepe actually look like. But coming forward to the Sumerians, we have a pretty generally good idea that the Sumerians were a darker skinned people, right? They were maybe my complexion or a little bit lighter. They were of a high melanin count. The Akkadians, similar. But then we started to have differences, changes because of trade, because of people conquering one another, right? The people of Greece started, their society is getting started. The trade routes that goes into the Mediterranean. Understand the history of the Bible and the history of Egypt and the Levant is not the more accurate statement wouldn't be it's African history. The most accurate statement would be that it's Mediterranean history. You got to think about it like that. It's Mediterranean, all of North Africa, right? All of the Levant, all of the Turkish Anatolia, all of throughout Greece and Italy and Spain and France and what's now Croatia and all that. All of that is Mediterranean history. And when you look at it from the standpoint of it being Mediterranean history, what you realize is that those people were in constant contact with each other. This is why so much advancement comes out of this region. This is why there's so much history in the region, is because you have the Mediterranean Sea, which it's a big ass lake on the world. If you think it's if it wasn't for the Straits of Gibraltar, it'd be the biggest lake in the world, or sea. But it's huge, right? But these people were able to traverse it and trade with one another and move and live amongst each other. That creates mixtures of people. Then they begin conquering one another. So before you get to Jesus, you got that area being controlled by the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, the Kemetic people, multiple times with the Kemetic people, with Egypt, multiple times being conquered by Egypt, then being conquered by the Babylonians, and then you get the Persians, and mind you, the Persians now went all the way up into Greece, right? Then you get the Persians, and then you get conquered by the Greeks. Whereas in the Greeks, their process of Hellenization is to force marriage of the Greek soldiers to the native women. All right. Certainly, you're going to get you're getting a lightening of skin during the Greek era, and then you got the Romans, who were also of a lighter hue. We used to argue. I don't argue this anymore. We used to argue about Cleopatra and the fact that Liz Taylor played Cleopatra. Angelina tried to trick me into watching that crap yesterday. There's no way I'm going to watch that. Grand Rising Debbie, Grand Rising Nikki, Steve, Seven, Kurt, One Immaculate. But she tried to get me to watch that mess, right? I was like, I'm not watching that. It's because I don't like Liz Taylor. That's why I don't want to watch it. But people were so upset that Liz Taylor played Cleopatra, right? Cleopatra was not a black woman. She was a Ptolemy. She was a Greek. She was, at minimum, she was light brown. She was light brown. Most likely, I didn't mean to say at minimum. Most likely, she was very light brown. She'd be red bone, light skin. Okay? That's what Cleopatra would have been, right? And even that term swarthy does not mean dark, right? It doesn't. It has a range within it, because the Barbary pirates were called swarthy. The Moors were called swarthy. And you got some light skin to dark skin Moors and Barbary pirates. But she wasn't black. She was cream. Or like that little girl said, I'm peach. Oh, matter of fact, Nikki's Puerto Rican, right? Got some Puerto Rican in her. Every Puerto Rican family I've ever known, when you go see their family, and I've been to, if you see them in a large gathering, they got the whole goddamn kaleidoscope. The whole kaleidoscope. And I'll be sitting there like, somebody been cooking in somebody else's kitchen. But they got the whole kaleidoscope. And it could be the same two parents. One of my guy, Ness, when I was in Camp Lejeune, Ness looked like a white guy. And these are all same mother, same father. His little brother, had an afro and was darker than me, and his sister looked like she was from Mexico. And they got the same mother, same father. Right? Café con leche. Got my café con leche. Muy bien. Says muy bien. All right, so if we know that Cleopatra, the Ptolemies, the Greeks, they forced intermarriage with their people. This is why if you go to India, you'll notice the lighter skinned people in India is because of when Alexander was there. The reason why you get that throughout Afghanistan, you start getting a lighter hue of people throughout Afghanistan, throughout the Persian Empire, Persian Empire went almost to India. Alexander went all the way to India. You get a lighter hue of people because of the forced intermarriage of the Greek soldiers. It just happens. And India, the reason why I specifically say that, because Alexander only reached northern India. He didn't conquer the entirety of India, right? And then you get that mindset of the lighter the skin, the higher the upper echelon of class, right? Javier, I like that name. That's why I use Javier. I saw that before, and I can never pronounce those names right. But I can't say it right. But he broke it down in how they gave people different names and categories based on the skin tone. All right. So, Grand Rising LaQuinn. So, if before this Jesus character is born, you got these different people intermixing. Even within the Bible itself, if a person was coming at this from a biblical standpoint, the Jewish people, the line of Jesus is mixed with people with Moabites, because Ruth is in the line of this Jesus. So it's not like you can't claim, oh, this is just a pure Hebrew thing. Nope. You got Moses' wife. She mixed in now. She was Midian. She was a Midianite. We know historically that they mixed in with the Canaanite people, that they also mixed in with the Phoenicians. So this group of people mixed in with multiple people, and these people come in different shades. But with that huge incursions of the Greeks and the Romans, there's absolutely no freaking way you're going to get a black Jesus. It's not going to happen. It's an impossibility. All right. Your light skin is still a dark, bro. What's wrong with Elizabeth Taylor? Like, I know she's been married for us. I just don't like her acting. Overly dramatic to me. But so this idea that Jesus is black, and because if you took a person who most likely was going to be Jesus back then and bring him forward to today, only pretty much in America they would automatically say he black. But if you put him in almost any other country, they're going to ask questions. Are you Indian? Are you Persian? Are you Arab? Are you, from all these other different places? Are you? We was watching this show last night, and I couldn't tell at first. Angie figured out. She was like, "I think that's a lighter skinned black person," but you couldn't tell. But they're gonna ask everywhere else in the world. They'll first start us thinking that they might be from somewhere else. Like the Persian guy, he's Indian, who would come to my lounge, who is Muslim. We just call him racially ambiguous because depending upon whose perspective, he's a white guy. Somebody else's perspective, he's Hispanic. Another person's perspective, he's Latin, European Latin. From another person's perspective, he's an Arab. He's straight Indian. We're more Indian than anything. That's why the correct way to say what we are should be a new. Where are you saying we're from? 7. I'm not exactly sure. You know what? That ain't got nothing to do with this conversation right now. Because we went through that one. We are not mostly native to this country, to America, if that's where you're going. Right. The Israeli group would come in many different, the Israelites were in many different shades, all kinds of different shades. And even in their artworks and their potteries that we have found of them, they are in many different shades, just like the Kemetic people. I can't stand when people say, oh, the Egyptians, like in that video that I posted with the Egyptian woman who was holding the black baby, giving praise to the black baby. Some even say that that's her child. But from what I was able to gather from the people who's supposed to know her, that's not her child, but her friend's child. But shit, I lost my damn train of thought. Oh, that lady is Arab. She's holding this black baby. Even when you go and you look at the Metanetchers in Egypt, they have people ranging from multiple colors, from light skin to dark skin and everything in between. They have elites of every spectrum. They have the lowest caste of every spectrum. They were a huge mixture of people from much further back than any of us would know. And the fact that people on that video saying, oh, she's not a real Egyptian. I'm like, okay, so if you're born in America, ain't you a real American? You're American, right? If you're born somewhere, that's what you are. And I get what they were saying, that they weren't the original, but you don't know the original. We really don't. We know that upper and lower can fought each other back and forth, back and forth. We know that lower was darker skinned people. We know that upper was lighter skinned people. How light, we're not exactly 100% sure, but They fought each other. They intermixed. They ruled over each other. Because of a mixture. Right. We still finding out, and we'll still keep finding out. So Egypt wasn't this, it was a big peaceful black nation, and then other people started visiting and messing it up. No. Long before Alexander ever came to Egypt, Greeks were already coming to Egypt, living in Egypt, intermixing with the Egyptians, marrying them, having children with them. Their society was already diverse, like centuries upon centuries, an eon before they ever came, before Alexander conquered it. Matter of fact, hold on. Let me get me a certain date that I would look for. When did Pythagoras come to Egypt? When did Pythagoras go to Egypt? So Pythagoras, in around 535 BCE, is when he went to Egypt. When did Alexander conquer Egypt? Alexander doesn't come to Egypt till 332, right? So Pythagoras is a few hundred years before Alexander. But Egypt was already but for Pythagoras to know about Egypt, Egypt had already been dealing with the Greeks longer than Pythagoras has been around. So even before Alexander conquers it, you still got hundreds of years before anybody would come and conquer the land that they're already trading with each other. That's why I said North Africa, the Levant, the Turkish peninsula, all the way across Europe, Southern Europe, it's the history of the Mediterranean, right? History of the Mediterranean, not the history of Africa, not the history of the Levant. Those are sub-histories. But the primary is the history of the Mediterranean, because they have been connecting with each other for thousands of years before this Jesus character would have ever come about. Now, I know people look for descriptions of this Jesus character in the Bible. Now, in Isaiah 53, it describes Jesus as an ordinary looking dude. He's a regular person, regular old dude. Right? That's it. What video did you do where an Egyptian lady was holding a baby? I did that over the weekend. I think Saturday I did it. And I give commentary. It's called This is a Disgusting Act, something like that. And it's a little slippery slope on that one. I said this is a disgusting act. My disgust was the fact that they were saying that this was a Palestinian woman selling a black baby, because it was disgusting to utilize this Egyptian woman giving praise to this black baby and try to use it as propaganda against the Palestinians. The Egyptian race is usually classified as dark skin with woolly hair, similar to Ethiopians, who are the first name as Ethiops or burnt face. I'm with you, but it depends on what time frame we start counting. That's another thing. I don't know if this is your first time being here. Is this your first time being here, Javier? And if I'm saying that right, I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name. But I try to go back as far as we can possibly go. I don't like to pull from a certain time frame. I'm gonna go back, right, as far as we can go. Right. And then the fact that Nubians, so North and South, so North Egypt, which is kind of crazy because North Egypt, I think is Lower Egypt. South Egypt is called Upper Egypt. It's because of the direction that the Nile River flows. Okay, I am saying it right. and it's your first time, 1 to 2 is what you're saying yes to. We're gonna say you're saying yes to both of them. All right. So Upper and Lower Egypt have been trading with each other for centuries. Sudan have been trading with them for centuries. And Egypt ain't little. I don't know if you've never been there. Egypt is a big ass country. Like, although you can drive from Cairo to Karnak, take an airplane. Take a plane. There are plenty of inter-country flights, right? Now, these people have been mixing, and that's how I need you to understand that they've been mixing for centuries of mixing with people out of Greece and people out of before Italy became Italy, the different groups. People, we know that the city of Troy actually existed, so they have been mixing with the people out of Troy, and so you got all these people, and as well as we know that they have been mixing with people from Asia. So we ain't got there yet. So let's go in there too. So they've been mixing with people from Asia. When I did go to the first time I went to Israel, one of the most astounding things that I found out about was when I went to Nazareth, and the guy was explaining how Joseph and Jesus would have been stonemasons, because there was an ancient Roman stone quarry, and that was the primary business of people in Nazareth at that time. The fact that there was an ancient Buddhist temple there, and they found ancient Buddhist relics there, demonstrated that people from Asia were there, right? Were there during that time frame. And why would they be there? Because they already been trading with these people. They had already been trading with and dealing with and know about the Levant. The reason why Megiddo, or what people call Armageddon, but the city of Megiddo, the reason why it was such a huge, so two actually, Jerusalem and Megiddo, Megiddo. Jerusalem and Megiddo were incredibly important cities because those were huge trading posts. Those were gateways into the east and into the south, and those were huge trading areas. And then, you have Babylon was the major trading hub. So these people were in connection with each other, right? This is why Alexander knew to go to India, because they already knew about each other. But the fact that they had temples, Buddhist temples in Nazareth, you don't build a temple unless you live there, right? You don't build a temple. Yeah, you thought I said ghetto. I know I caught myself, Megiddo. But you don't build temples in a place unless you live there, right? And those temples don't maintain long enough to become ancient ruins unless you live there for a while. So they also would have been mixing, possibly, with Asiatic people who were not at that time frame looking dark skinned like me, right? They would not have been. They were not at that time frame. When you look at their artwork, their craftsmanship at that time frame, they drew themselves as lighter skinned people. So it is highly unlikely that Jesus was just a straight up black dude. The Mongols, that's much later, Jeremy. That's much later. That's more during what I think the Byzantine Empire, during that time frame, I believe, is when the Mongols was coming in. I might be wrong about the Byzantines, but I know it's much later. It's after Rome had split and all that sort of thing. Oh yeah, That was right before the Renaissance. Okay, cool. So yeah, so that should be during the Byzantine then, right? Quran. But so this idea now, why? But no, in Isaiah, Isaiah said that Isaiah 53 described this coming Messiah as just an ordinary looking dude. Ain't nothing special about him, right? So we can't use that as a description of him. But the one that most people like to use out of the Bible is in Revelations. I don't remember the exact verse, book or chapter and verse, but in Revelation it talks about. And here, you know what? Hell no. I gotta find it. Revelation's description of Jesus, and there's a reason why. So it's Revelations 1, first chapter of Revelations 14 and 15. All right. Here we go. All right. I want y'all to listen to this. Listen to this carefully. I want y'all to listen. That's what I'm about to go to, Pharaoh. That's what I'm about to go to. It's Revelations 1. Even though it doesn't get started till 14, I'm going to start at 12 because I like to give a little bit extra beforehand. But it says that I turned around to see the voice that was speaking to me. And when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And among the lampstands was someone like a son of man. This is what they attribute to Jesus. Dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet and with golden sash around his chest. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. All right. So, because it says that his feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, people have taken that to mean that he's brown, right? That he's a brown skinned man. Now, he could be Arab if you took it literally like that. But this is symbology, not burning. And see, that's the thing. People say burnt. All right, no. Listen to the words. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace. When bronze glow in a furnace, it is a bright ass yellow type color. I don't know if you ever seen bronze in a furnace. It's not brown. We think about bronze in its cool state. In its cool state, bronze is brown. But when bronze is in a furnace, it is a bright yellowish color. Now, that bright yellow, but what they're really trying to say here is that he's radiant. You know, all of this is talking about the radiance of this guy. Right? And then when it says that in 14, and this is where people really get messed up too. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and eyes were like blazing fire. It doesn't say his texture of his hair was like wool. It just says his hair was the color as white like wool. Has nothing to do with the texture. It's just telling you the color of the hair. The hair could be straight, the hair could be curly, the hair could be kinky, the hair could be a whole bunch. So it's not describing what you would call, people can't use those to say he was black. What version is that? I don't know. What is this? That's the NIV. But the King James wouldn't matter. I'm amazed at how people actually trust the King James version. I do not trust the King James version. Has so many inaccuracies of understanding of converting from the of actual conversion from the Hebrew and the the Latin and the Greek. And this would have been a conversion from the Greek. But even in the King James, so the King James, it does say if burned in a furnace, but it was like unto his feet like fine brass. But the actual Hebrew word there is an action verb that means burning and having that glow. People don't understand how, people don't understand how dark Indians and Semitic people can be. Yeah. People can be dark, they can be light, they can be either one. But in the original, in the Greek, it's an action verb of burning. It is not a verb of something finished. It is burning in the process. Because John was trying to give this description where he's saying his eyes were red and bright and burning. He's giving this description of the radiance because of the shining ones. He's trying to compare Jesus back to the Old Testament and the Enochian mindset of the shining ones, that they were so bright you couldn't look at them, of Moses having to turn his back because he was so bright that he couldn't look at him. He's not this, they're not concerned about color and trying to give you a distinction of what his color is. All right, when it's finished, it's dark brown, but it's in the fire, so it's burning, it's bright. See, now, when you got a Bible that says burnt in a furnace, you also got agendas behind these types of things of trying to do that. Or you just got somebody who, you just got bad translations. Like, my agenda is to make it, not that they were trying to make it black. My agenda is I want it to read as close to the authorized King James version as I possibly can. Not, I want to actually get an accurate description or accurate translation. And King James had a huge agenda, so give me something that's translated more from the Septuagint, from the original Greek, and I'll take that. But even the Septuagint has its problems from being translated from it in its translations from the Aramaic, because there are some Aramaic words or ancient Hebrew words that do not convert exactly over to the Greek. So the Greeks would try to use the closest word that they have. Then when you go from the Greek to the Latin, the closest word that they have. And then from to English, the closest thing that they have, i.e. Jesus's actual name is Yahoshua or Yeshua, which translate into English as Joshua, right? But the Greeks don't have a Joshua. They don't have the sound. They don't have the wa sound in their language. So they couldn't translate Yeshua in Greek. So the closest thing they had was Ius. And then the closest thing and then the Latin translated the Ius to Isus. And then the English translated the Isus to Jesus once they got the letter J. Because in the authorized King James, he's still referred to as Isus. I'm Ius. So because they didn't have a J when it, at the time frame, then the J they changed over to Jesus. So when you look at these translations and you take a modern day perspective on it, we have a modern day perception of it, then you're not really going back and looking at it from a wider perspective to see what it was to back then. Because what it was back then is what actually matters. which we make it out today, has nothing to do with the process. But the entire region was a Kibulan, and the Middle East was actually part of Africa thousands of years ago. I actually don't believe he even existed, but you have to acknowledge that the region at the time. Actually, no, that entire region was not a Kibulan. I understand, Ricky Steamboat. I'm with you, because in the 90s, I was a Kibulan like a champ, and I was like the whole Middle East was part of a Kibulan, but it wasn't. A Kibulan, in truth, was something that was only referred to by sub-Saharan Africans. North of the Sahara, it was not ever referred to as a Kibulan. The people of that area never referred to it. And the people of the Levant never referred to it as a Kibulan. They never attached themselves to the lower, to across the Sahara. To them, the Sahara was an uncrossable sea. It wasn't part of their life. Very few crossed it. They sailed as far down the Red Sea to the Horn of Africa and then dwelt right there. And that's where they would get their connection for people of Southern Africa. But as far as it being a one landmass, we all unified together kind of deal, no. At no point did they all call it that. Never. That is something that Black nationalism created and pushed and personified. And part of this whole video is the fact that you can get trapped in your deconstruction because of Black nationalism, because you know that we got a shitty hand. Okay, the last, say, 800 years. Well, not even, that's too much. That's too much. The last 500 something like that. So about the last 500, 600 years for Black people, for people of color, we've had a shitty hand, right? The hand is getting better now, but we went through a period of good 500 years of having a shitty hand. So sometimes when you have a shitty hand and you're coming out of it, you reach back and try to make something that you can stand on and be proud of. And there's nothing wrong with that until we force things. When we start forcing things that aren't true to make ourselves feel better or to give us a higher standing, and that's where we mess up. That's what this Bible has done. If you think about it, the Bible has taken the Hebrew people, the Israelites, coming out of the Bronze Age collapse. They had a shitty hand prior. You had a shitty hand. So they created a history of antiquity for themselves. And then their hand was shitty when they're conquered by the Assyrians. They're conquered by the Kemetic people. They're conquered by the Babylonians, conquered by the Persians, conquered by the Greeks. They needed a better deal. So they created a propaganda about how they used to control the Levant, and David had this big grand kingdom, that no archaeology exists of this grand kingdom, that Moses came out of Egypt and they conquered the Sinai Peninsula by destroying 300 different villages and walls and Jericho falling down, all this stuff. And they went into the promised land and conquered all the Canaanites. And no, that shit never happened. That never happened. The Bronze Age collapsed in conjunction with the Phoenicians whooping the Kemetic people ass and forcing them out of the Levant, gave them this freedom to be able to build their society for a little while. And then a few hundred years later, the Assyrians come and whoop that ass. And then after the Assyrians, I think you get the Kemetic again for a minute. And then you get back to the Babylonians, and then the Persians and Greeks and Romans and so on and so forth. So I wanted to keep Ulam. I wanted that to be like true. It took me a while. I was like, hell no, this shit true. I'm gonna prove it's true. But no. When you study sub-Saharan African history, the different countries, and then it was just going there and going to museums and talking to different professors and archaeologists. It's a black nationalist thing. Amen. So do you think it would be possible to connect Jesus, the morning star, and the depiction of him as being brass, as if it was burning in this sun god in Egypt? I'm not exactly sure I understand what you're saying. Now I understand Jesus being connected with the morning star, which is just the planet Venus, the illuminator, the light bringer, which is a symbolism of bringing illumination, bringing life. But the whole burning brass was more of an Enochian connection with the shining ones, of showing his majesty, his glory. That has nothing to do with the Egyptian sun god of Ra or Horus. Okay, I don't know who you're talking about, Pangea, but Pangea, there was no humans around during Pangea. Jesus was Palestinian, Arab, and continue to blow my mind that you are obsessed with him. And I will agree with you on that one. If Jesus walked around today, they would think he was Palestinian, that he was Arab. I'm not obsessed with Jesus. I am helping people deconstruct from it. And you do not deny any other religions. I wasn't born into Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism, although I do talk about them from time to time, but that is not my primary. You can find plenty of people who have walked away from Islam and Buddhism and all the other isms, and they are doing the exact same thing to those religions. So don't play the victim mentality, Joshua. No, you know what, Cora? Don't even worry about it. I get so many people who, oh, why don't you talk about this religion or that religion? Because I didn't grow up in that one. But you got Christianity is the one that's attacked the most. No, it's not. Right. Not to their land, but family names, their ethnicity. Those are their primaries. The family name and ethnicities. Like, I remember being asked the question, what was Jesus' last name? I remember that was a trick question that people used to ask. Because Jesus didn't have a last name. If he existed, he wouldn't have had a last name. He would have either been Jesus of Nazareth, which is where you're from, or Jesus, son of, most likely is son of Joseph. So he'd have been Yeshua ben Joseph. It was part. Now I understand what you're saying until 1947, but that was what we decided. That's what man decided, and that was during an era where it was considered part of Africa. But prior to that, it wasn't considered part of Africa. You see what I'm saying? There are different time frames that people consider land masses to be connected to another land mass and or by name. But Akibulan has never been a fullness of that entire area. Have we did the first hour yet? No, I still got 2 minutes before the first hour is up. Grand Rising Andrea. But we cannot allow for how we feel about or how the world reacts and deals with race today to determine how things were back then. They're not. We have to stand back and have a perception of the entire picture. That at the end of the day, we deal with race on this gross matter plane, but beyond that, race don't exist. And we shouldn't have any fealty towards historical race because it doesn't benefit us in any form or fashion. If you truly think about it, what does it matter? Now I can, oh, there were black kings, there were black queens, and then you can have some kind of pride about that. Okay, that's fine. But if you are living in a terrible situation, surrounded by terrible people, and those people all look like you, and you're picking up on all those cultural behaviors, and children are picking up on all those cultural behaviors, that's not impacting them. Who they see in their neighborhood is impacting them. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Gober, I can see the negative people, but I will see Mr. Gober. And I knew Mr. Gober was a good man, and that was a good role model. I will see Mr. Gray, I will see these other men in my communities, great men. I will see these other women in my communities, great women. I can look at more recent history and see, and where we have a closer connection, great people. But and then when we do have people in our history, Mansa Musa, incredibly wealthy man, great king. All right, Shaka Zulu, great. There's some good shit in the history back in the day. We should personify those things. Queen T, instead of Cleopatra, Queen T, Hatshepsut, Nefertari. We can get down with some of them, but expand it. There's greatness throughout the continent. It doesn't have to just keep being the same damn place, right? It's just that we so happen to have more information from Egypt because it's in a land area where it's easier to save that information. That information has been saved easier, but we don't have to force this Jesus narrative and not try to make him black. And we damn sure cannot sit up here and say that the Bible is a book of African spirituality. That would be invalid. And Billy Carson said there's a lot of similarity between the Bible and the Kemetic story. This is true, but there are actually more similarities between the Bible and the Sumerian story than there are similarities to the Kemetic story. That is why the Bible is more heavy. This is why I'm saying it's not an African book, because the Bible is more heavily influenced by the Sumerians and all the other branches of Sumeria, from the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. Is more heavily influenced by those groups than it is from the Kemetic groups, right? Now, all of them have something that's shared, but in the same way, there are things in the Kemetic that are similar to what's in the Aztecs and the Mayans, and in the Polynesian and everywhere else. There's certain things that are just worldwide shared of mentalities of thought process. The Kemetic people, Nubian people, had nothing to do with West African people, but Ifa and Kemetic have similar stories as well. And they weren't talking to each other when these stories were created. But the Hebrew story, the Israelite story, connects more to the Sumerian story than it does to the Kemetic story. The problem is that people like to connect it more to the Kemetic story because it's more well known, and they want to connect it to Africa so that they can, to a certain degree, try to keep elements of this religion. There's no need to keep any element of this religion at all. That is my biggest point. There's no reason to keep any of it. And then my ancestors come from West Africa. They do not come from East Africa at all. And they do not come from North Africa at all. They West Africans. And unless a person can show me, especially if you're in America, unless you can show me, you can prove that your family, I'll even accept your DNA things. Even though the DNA does have a big flaw in it. And that flaw is, it's comparing the phenotypes, the DNA rather, of people who are in those areas today that does have ancestry in those areas So it has at least that legitimacy to it. But you're still comparing more recent times. You're not able to compare ancient bloodlines. But I'll even take that. Grand Rising Paul, Black Lands, Yoshi. Welcome, welcome. Appreciate that, Pharaoh. Grand Rising Ramses got a new daddy in the house. How's the baby doing? Pray to any God you like. It all the same in the end. I am God, you are God, we are God. I'd rather have that. That makes more sense to me, Yoshi, than all this other than these books. I see I've gotten well behind y'all comments. Christopher said, we don't know any of these people in the past that all well could be a lie. And all of it is told from all of it is told from the perspective of the individual person writing, right? Whether you're reading the winner story or the loser story, you're still reading the story based on the propaganda of that person. Very few would be just completely honest and just give it how it was. And even to that, you're still basing it on a perspective. And this is one of those points where me and Paul are going to agree. Egypt was not black. Egypt was a multiple. It was a fruit salad. All kind of colors up in that joint. Africa already had multiple pantheons of gods in their pagan worship. I don't use pagan. That's a Christian derogatory term that they created in order to downgrade everybody else's religion. And actually, most of your the ancient African religions, most of them wasn't so much not polytheistic in the strictest terms of polytheism. Just like the Indus religion, there was one primary God that is everything. And out of that God, you have the different natures of that God represented by what people are calling other deities. But they weren't deities. They were representations of the primary. It just gave people an ability to focus on certain aspects. And then those get turned into something polytheistic by Christianity. Yeah. And the Greek civilization was started because Pythagoras came and studied in Kemet, and then took that to Croton, began his society. Now, I can't say it's hard to say they began. People was already there. They were already had, towns and villages and things of that nature. Pythagoras just learned in Kemet, went to Croton, began the Pythagoreans, and their society began to grow and become more uplifted, and then more unification and that sort of thing. But they were already there. They were already, during that time frame, they were already there and had just different levels of civilization, level of innovation. But they did learn a lot from the Kemetic people. Baby and the wife are doing well. We should be leaving the hospital today or tomorrow. God dang. I thought after this is, oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking military. Military, you have a cesarean, you 10 days in the hospital, but they kick you out quick now. Let me see if I can catch up to y'all. Shit, y'all went way farther than me. But yes, racism was created by wealthy people in order to maintain a separation between between uh, the groups of people. They needed to legitimize the underclass people of their own in order to maintain a separation between the people of color. Like one person said, once Europeans realized that there were more people of color in the world than they had to then militarize the poor Caucasians that they were previously treating like trash, and gave them race in order to make them feel better, to get them on their side. When before they started going out and exploring and trading more, they were like treating their own people like shit. What is Agan saying? Greetings, Coach Wildlife Religion Coach. Indeed, the Negroid ancestry of Jesus will never be enough to legitimize the absurdity of several of his alleged propositions. Being the son of man, being the son of God, and the human sacrifice, etc. That says there are things that even this Jesus is credited to have said that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, how do you fault a man who encourages his people to love one another? It seems like you kind of went two different directions in that statement, so I'm not exactly sure which direction you're going in now. So if you can clarify. That's the knock I got against Ray Hagan. Though he throw the gist of his statement, I find enlightenment. I see the rub. I haven't listened to Ray Hagan in a long time, so I don't know exactly Blacklands. Is he trying to claim that it's a black book, it's an African book? Because here's the thing. So this is why my channel is not as popular. I'll tell you right now. I know sometimes I get somebody's like, oh man, you should have a lot more followers. But I don't. Oh, so he does that? Okay. I don't, because there's this gray area that you can get into. And you can get more people. If I could talk about pretty much the same things that I say, but if I say if I went totally opposite of this video and was saying that Jesus was black and the Bible is African Kemetic ancestry, religion, spirituality that was stolen and corrupted by Europeans, I get a much bigger following, much bigger following. It's a softer pill to swallow for people who want to keep this book, but yet they know that there's something wrong with it, because then they can say, they can still read the book, they can still believe in Jesus to a certain extent. They can still believe in Jesus. And then you can nitpick different parts of this book to make it work for you. So I could, but I can't. You can educate yourself to be a slave, I guess. Yeah, you can educate yourself to be a slave, but the true knowledge is empowering and not shocking. Not shackling. True knowledge isn't. You truly become free of it, and you realize how you can become free of it. It's even in something as simple as moving. I had a dude on that video talking about black people get no love nowhere. And I responded to him by saying, I don't like assuming, but you have probably never lived outside of the United States. Because to make a statement like that really demonstrates to me you've never lived outside the United States. If you say that black people don't get no love anywhere in the world, bullshit. Bullshit. I can take you to some places where black people are treated fairly equally on the most part, on the whole. There's always going to be some racist people, but on the whole, you're treated more fairly than you are treated here. And you will forget what it feels like to have all this racism. Because I did. I forgot. I came back to this country and I was like, oh, I got to get the hell out of here. No, Abraham is not African. Abraham was Sumerian. Abraham was a Sumerian. He was not African. He's from the city of Ur. If he ever lived, he was from the city of Ur. Oh, okay. So I'm submitting to you that Jesus may have been a fictional character, but there are some gems that can be gleaned from the film. The Bible is a story, a fiction, and like any other book, there are gems and things that can be thrown into the bin. Yes, I do agree with that one. There are some things that the Jesus character says that are good. That's some good stuff. You know, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, did he say that, or was that Paul? But yeah, I think he said that. But yeah, he did say that in the greatest commandments. That is a good thing. Turn the other cheek though, hell no. No. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's? No. Caesar cheat the hell out of you and wind up poor and enslaved. He said, my Jesus is black. The only way I would say that my Jesus is black is that if I'm saying that I am my own savior, and since I look in the mirror and we classify the classification of this gross matter today in today's world as black, that's the only way I say it. Beyond that, nah. Jesus looked more like an Arab. Though I may not agree with your conclusions on some things, I appreciate your deconstruction while trying to be as objective and as possible to history. I actually love that statement. I don't want anybody I don't like when people agree with me 100%, because then we're not learning nothing. We're not learning. And I try to step back, take away my own perception of things, and just see the whole picture for what it is. And whatever it is what it is, whether I like it or not. It is what it is. Like when I was younger, Shaka Zulu was my man. And then the more I studied him, I was like, okay, he's still my dude, but that motherfucker was evil and crazy. You know, he became a tyrant. Probably false prophet information. Okay. Outside of Africa, I'd love to know where we are treated fairly, and I am looking for a place to retire. Okay, depending on how much money you got, whether retirement. But and I only go on places that I spent enough time. I have to have spent enough time and got a feel for the society. But in Germany, definitely. Germany, you will forget what it's like to deal with racism like a champ, especially in Southern Germany. You're going to forget, right? But Germany, Italy, I'm going to start with the European places I spent time with, but Germany, Italy, France. Now, you will encounter some racist motherfuckers, people in France, but your opportunities, your fairness in judicial systems is there. And that's how I look at it. You're going to find racist people. But those countries, in Greece, oddly enough, in Israel, in Jordan, everything was fair. Now, some of them other Arab countries like Bahrain, Dubai, police wise, okay, their culture is what could make it feel unfair. You know what I'm saying? And then some of their business rules are geared towards their people. I don't blame them for that one though. Like if you get in business with an Emirati, and at any time frame that Emirati can kick you out of that business. If those rules are still the same. I know 5 years ago, those 6, 7 years ago, those were the rules. That's unfair, but it ain't about your color. It's about your nationhood. They just protect their people. So, and they don't, they have nothing to do with race. It's more about nationality. But those are definitely some places where I felt that. Now, I've had other people that I've known who have lived in like Thailand, in Singapore, in China, and they felt more comfortable and at peace and had more, fairer opportunities in life in those countries than they did in America. Now, you said I can't name the African ones because you said outside of Africa. But yeah. Now, of course, you got a lot of Caribbean places that you can get that fair treatment. I only know one guy who's loving it in Colombia. Exactly, Paul. There's good stuff in The Hobbit. You can get good stuff from almost anywhere. El Zoo. I fell behind y'all again. But yes, Bravado, we are so obsessed with this book that we can't see anything outside of this book. What great leader wasn't crazy or evil? Hey, my guy Kagami, he's not crazy. Ado, he's not crazy. At least so far, they're not. There's a level. There's a level of expected. You're gonna do some jacked up stuff. You're not gonna be able to please everybody as a leader, right? But Shaka was cool, but then he started going a little overboard. When he started thinking that he was immortal and killing his own children, and he started going a little overboard. He took the revenge a little too far. Do you think it's anything? I'm not sure what you mean by that one. Oh, you probably talked to somebody else. I don't know if I'm an atheist or a man that quit believing in the bullshit, but I'm quite at ease with my decision. Most people I know who are atheists, they define atheism as, and how I've seen it defined, is that it's not so much not believing in a God, just that there is not enough proof to believe in a God. If you were to give an atheist proof of a God, then atheists will say, okay. But since there's not enough proof, it's like hell to no. And yes, Yoshi, we are immortal, just not human. Our energy, our consciousness never dies. Now, what happens to it, where it goes, nobody can 100% say, oh, I know. You're going to go to heaven. You're going to be up there with Jesus. You're going to reincarnate with Buddhism. You're going to go and be with Krishna or Brahma, or nobody know. You can fade into black. For all we know, you can fade into black, and that's it. Your consciousness could be dispersed into fragments and then is attracted to other people's consciousness who are dispersed in the fragments. And then the fragments merge together to form a new consciousness of a new baby that's being born. And that is a very, if you think about it, if you want to put science into consciousness, it is very plausible that your consciousness gets fragmented. And then like attracts like, and everybody else's consciousness gets fragmented. Because think about a body that's placed in the ground, or an animal that dies. The energy of that body gets fragmented into a bunch of different, whether it's the grass, into the air, consumed by other animals. It's fragmented. That energy, it fragments into a bunch of different things. It's quite possible scientifically that if you look at it from how science works in that function, your consciousness gets fragmented, and then it coalesces with other fragmented consciousness, and then on some plane of existence, it comes back into a baby. And now that baby is a person of multiple fragmented consciousnesses in conjunction with whatever is given from the parents. And the thing about it, you can't prove it or disprove it. It's possible that it exists, that there are aliens, but the evidence is shoddy. Now, statistically speaking, there should be aliens, but again, the evidence is, yep. I always say that about when people ask me about aliens. It is, I've experienced this. I know past lives I have had, and then I recognize it in others, and it's a different facet. Yeah. That is a very plausible theory of, I can't say it's fact, because it's going to be everybody's personal experience of it or perspective of it. You can believe all kinds of things and be an atheist. Yeah, you can. We are pieces of everywhere. Particle, particular physics. Yeah, and you know what? Okay, so if you haven't been on here before, particle physics, I figured out what you meant. Like, the people who've been on here with me, they know I love movies. You ever see the movie Powder? If you watch the movie Powder, the little guy who's, I forgot whatever his name is, but they call him Powder. He is this highly conscious being, right? I love that movie. It's highly conscious being. I should have assigned that for a movie to break down the esoteric of that movie. But you know, he remembers everything from birth. That's how like his mind is, his consciousness. He's doing shit, manipulating energy, all kinds of stuff. But when he dies in the movie, so-called dies in the movie, he literally disperses into energy and becomes a part of everything and everybody. No. Well, not being able to disprove it doesn't mean that it is. But not being able to prove it doesn't mean that it ain't. But then there are some things that just ain't. You got to have when there is no proof at all. And there is no proof, and the, well, let me not say no proof. When the evidence of things go towards it not being real, then I will say that it is not. Like the evidence suggests that this God of the Bible, if there is a God, that ain't it. Now so Ramsey, that's a personal thing. That's how we like to personally do it. Looking at my newborn son last night, I wonder if he is a reincarnation of one of my ancestors. Could be part of one of your ancestors, but hell, he could have the part of the dispersed consciousness of Andrew Carnegie, or of some woman who lived on a mountain in Tibet 3,000 years ago. You see what I'm saying? But we romanticize things to try to make it personal, like a direct, like people are like, oh, he act just like my my great uncle, such and such. And see, we'll say that he's the full reincarnation of that great uncle. But there could be pieces from all over the place because of attraction of energy. What method should I use to disprove God? Let me be more specific. Disprove which God? That's the thing. Now, if you're talking about like how the Kabbalion would describe it as the all, a just intelligent mind, how you would disprove, how would you disprove that? That's a thought exercise there, sir, that I don't think about that often. But if I wanted to disprove that any deity exists, that period, conscious mind exists, that would be hard for me because my perception is that of the all, that is not some Geppetto deity that's playing around. My perception is a intelligent design, but it just created because it created. It's not involved with its creation. It's not forcing anything. All thing in existence just exists, and you are to, if you choose to, try to elevate your consciousness to understand more and more how things functions in the universe. And just by doing that, and which is something that we have a tendency to naturally do, which is why we have innovations, at some point you rise to a higher state of consciousness if your consciousness stays together, and then you exist at a higher plane. But to get to a point where you are existing on the same plane with the creative mind, you will never get there. The created can never be on the same level as the creation. They can never be the same. How do you disprove a tiny teapot on the other side of Pluto? You got to go to Pluto. You got to go to Pluto and look at the entire landscape, every inch. But you're talking about that's apples and oranges, though. You can't, that type of comparison doesn't work because you're talking about something that exists, that you're trying to prove something that is in this gross matter that we can feel, that's tangible, that we can feel and touch, compared to something that is not tangible. You got to be in the same playing field. You know, in time, there's no telling what we'll be able to prove in time. As we have gained microscopes and telescopes and all these other types of ways of seeing things beyond what our eyes can see, now we come to realize that those things exist. If you went back 1,000 years and said that there were microorganisms inside of water, then people would have thought you was crazy. Prove it. Well, you had no way of proving it. It was just what you believed was there until you were able to prove. But those things exist in this matter plane. So we find out that there are microscopic things in our matter plane. And we're finding with telescopes, we're finding new galaxies and planetary systems and all of that. So it goes both macro and micro. So until we're trying to prove, there are scientists trying to figure out what the consciousness is. Shit, we don't know. We need to link up. Just let me know when you're available, Ramsey. Just let me know. You got that new baby, so I don't know about your availability. I don't know if you're gonna get a break. Plus, she had a cesarean, so you got to do everything in the house. Everything. She can't lift nothing. I've been getting the intuitive hints about the tapestry and fabric of life. This is a confirmation. Good. I always say, go with your gut. Brother Sanchez. Why does that sound familiar to me? Like I know who that person is. Yeah, I need a burden of proof. That's why I say that with the evidence that with just looking at the order of nature and the cosmos, I lean more to, I say the evidence leans more towards a creative mind, not some fucking God in these books, than evolution. I do accept adaptation, but we haven't seen something go from one species to another, a new species. So that's why I can't get down with evolution, but I can go with adaptation. Now, when they try to say, well, where did all of this come from? Where did the universe come from? Where did humans come from? We don't know. We don't know. Don't know. We know we're here now, but we don't know. We can only go back so far. All these other guys got man-made these jokers. The figmentations of our imagination, or trying to explain what's going on in nature. That's crazy. If you reach a certain level of consciousness, and it's true that you can disperse into matter, energy, and become part of everything and everybody, is insane. Yeah, they did the similar thing with the movie Lucy, but Powder did it best to me. Okay, I thought yeah, I do remember I got Brother Sanchez on YouTube. I haven't seen anything of his in years though. I don't use the title atheist for myself, but I do hate when they say that about atheists and other people who don't agree with aid, that if you don't believe in anything, that you don't believe in anything, and that annoys you so much. Yeah. And Yoshi, I would agree. I think that God was made in order for people to have an excuse to kill each other. And you're right, because you, like my man earlier said, you have to, you can't live life without believing in something. Because there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to prove everything that you accept as a fact of life of how you're going to live. You know, you're going, at some point there's something you believe in. Whether it's another, I tell my kids, I believe in you. At a minimum, you're going to, I believe in the character of this person. I know you're a better person. I believe in you. I have confidence in you. You don't know. They might still go out there and act a fool, but you believe that they're a good person. Somewhere inside them is a good person. You're not going to see that in evolution. Evolution has to have, okay, so explain it. Because for my understanding of evolution, you go from one species. Evolution is the concept of the single cell organism multiplying, becoming bigger, and then evolving into this, that, and the third, and then evolve from species to species. It's just like with the whole common ancestor. We are not the same species as the gorilla, the monkey, or the chimp, but they claim that there's a common ancestor that each one of those species broke off from. So that's a change in species. You said the film kind of ain't Powder. I think the film came in 95. Yeah, it's old, but it's great. Yeah, Powder is great. I like Lucy too. I like Limitless better, but I like Lucy. It's like they made the same movie, but then went a little bit different. So we are Legion. Yep. No problem, Alice. We try to have great conversations here, respectful and back and forth. So superstition is in our DNA. It would seem to be what they call it, the worship gene. I think it's part of that worship gene that we have to create these different superstitions and deities and stuff. That for things that we can't explain, we force ourselves to manifest some process, whether it's splitting a pole or a deity in the sky. So atheism, no, now atheism is not a religion. I'm not saying that. Atheism is not a religion. I'm just saying there's something you're going to believe in that you're not going to always be able to have facts about everything. So when they say, when a person say that an atheist doesn't believe in anything, there are certain things, but it's not God-like shit. Like, for instance, I know atheists who believe in luck, but there's no such thing as luck. There's never been a such thing as luck. There is just cause and effect. Luck is when you don't know what the causation is. Birds evolved from dinosaurs. And then you're talking about from the lizard dinosaurs to birds, right? So is there something proof that shows the lizard, which is one species, becoming avian, which is a different species? You're looking for DNA evidence of that claim? Right, because we don't have any evidence of that claim. They'll say, okay, our DNA and a chimp's DNA is like a 98% match, right? And then it's that 2% that makes the difference. Our DNA and a octopus DNA is 80% match. The only thing that says to me is that we all come from Earth. We all come from Earth. That everything on Earth is going to have certain levels of DNA matching because we're all on the same planet, same environment, same amount of, but then not same environment, we're all on the same planet. But there are so many vast environments on this planet that you're going to have DNA changes in order for that creature to survive on this planet. And see, I would say luck is just causation working in your favor. Whether you are the causation or someone else is the causation, it just happened to work in your favor. Well, I'm gonna have to find that tons of evidence because I personally haven't seen it. And to be honest, I have not researched evolution in decades. So what new things could have been found, I don't know. Have you ever seen those videos where people are magically disappearing and now that they are linking it to the rapture? Yeah, I've seen those. And I think it's a bunch of bullshit because the Bible actually doesn't speak about a rapture at all. There's no rapture in the Bible. The rapture was something that was created. I can't remember the guy's name, but in the 1800s, the idea of a rapture was created then. Prior to that, Christianity didn't have a rapture. The rapture was the Romans coming and taking people. What is your concept of nihilism? Do you think there is clearly a difference between if a person was a nihilist or someone who was an atheist? Actually, I know what the word nihilism, but I forgot what it means. So give me a second to remind myself. What is nihilism? What is nihilism?
Nihilism.
The rejection of all religion and moral principles and the belief that life is meaningless. They condemn oh, hell no. I think that's very different from atheists. Where did your comment go? So I can make sure I'm reading this right. No, I don't. I in atheism, I don't think atheists think that life is meaningless. Life has great meaning to atheists. But if a person is a nihilist and thinks that life is meaningless, I wouldn't categorize them the same as a um, as an atheist, because atheists, at least the majority of that I know, and the ones that I've heard speak, they believe in loving one another, taking care of one another, systems of morality. So if they believe that life was meaningless, then you open a gap for you to be able to get rid of systems of morality at that point. Like you don't have to be kind to anyone or respect anyone. That's not good. Unless I'm looking at nihilism wrong and don't truly understand it. As far as evolution goes, the theory itself derives itself from the natural selection and mutation, both of which are observable concepts. Which natural selection, you say mutation, but yeah, mutation, adaptations, I 1% factor that. And if that is evolution, then evolution is fine. I'm fine with it. To be able to say when it all began, we'll never know. I tell cats all the time that if N-word believes in themselves, like they believe in Jesus, we would be the shit. But unfortunately, they can't imagine it. I agree 100% on that one. If people believe in themselves like they believe in this Bible, then yeah, they'd be great. In Jesus, they'd be amazing. I'm filming a documentary I'm watching about one asteroid that Gaia millions of years ago had life in microforms, and we descended from them as we adopted through time. I think I might have seen that before. I've heard of that theory of the asteroid with microorganisms hitting on the Earth, splashing in the water, and then over time, all the species started developing. And they've seen similar things to that um, on like in volcanic. I think it was in Ireland with this volcano that's constantly erupting there, and life, like I guess they got some microbes. They're thinking they might have some microbes that is pulling from this lava, and that those are it's breeding life. Oh, nihilism about one's more about one's destiny or purpose, meaning that what like your destiny is nothingness. I would have to do more research on nihilism, bro, to truly understand it deeper. So, do people who are nihilists do they believe in the concept of having a system of morality to maintain civilization? Or because to me, when you say life is meaningless, it sounds depressive. It sounds like a person who's just like, what's the point in like I can there's to murder you, there's no big deal. Uh, to take from you is no big deal. To become president and then just go press the button and blow everything up, because what's the big deal? Or is it just live life, enjoy life to your fullest? Because at the end, you go into oblivion. Yeah. Now I'm with you, Terrell. People trying to figure out life and haven't figured it out yet. Just live. I agree with that. Live the life you live your best life, because you're not gonna know shit until it's over, and then you might not know nothing at that point. right? Anything who think that, and that's how I read with the nihilist. If you think life is meaningless, then you're very pessimistic. What's the I at least an atheist well, at least every atheist I know, because I can't speak for all of them. They all do believe in living the best life they can possibly live. And I'm sure there's some out there who are atheists who are some criminals and shit like that too. Since you're talking about the Bible, where in the Bible did you study for this subject? The subject of which the main subject that we was talking about? For the most part, looking at Revelations. As far as Revelation, as far as in the description of this Jesus, it's Revelations and Isaiah. As those are about the closest you're going to get to descriptions. You have to look at the Bible from a fullness of what it claims to be its history, in order to break it down into these people would have been looking what's the possibility of the Jesus character looking like. As far as the Bible being a book, being African, is also understanding and knowing that the Bible is in its birth more of a copy of the Sumerian story, then with elements of other cultural stories that was brought into it. But the fact of how people thought about the landmass to which they lived under during that time frame, which would not have been African. It wouldn't have considered it African. So it's not like, oh, this chapter, this verse for the Bible is not African spirituality. It's a whole bunch. And I already know the art of being, you will never agree with anything that I say, because it's basically, I ain't gonna say you will never agree with anything. Those are two finite words. You disagree with most of the things that I say because I disagree with your concept of belief in this book. So of course your mindset is, I must not be studying it right, or haven't studied it at all, making that assumption without even knowing anything about me. But that's you. Grand Rising Raquel. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in that good ass prana. Release that nirvana. The planet will be here long after us. I definitely agree with that one. This planet will be here for, unless something come and smash the shit out of it, it will be here. What's the knowledge they're keeping so secret? They don't know who you're talking about. But I don't know. That's more going into the conspiracy things. The sum of all humanity will he erase. I don't know what you mean by that. Because there's no individual that's going to erase everything. Yet the life of a nihilist sounds sort of depressing. The description of a nihilist sounds sort of like a Debbie Downer. Yeah, I don't think I could ever classify myself as a nihilist. Doesn't mean there's no purpose, just not to the universe. I mean, I don't think the universe itself in its consciousness is saying that, hey, we gotta have, this is the purpose of man. And we just exist and we create our own purpose. Yeah. Now that argument, you just wait till you dead, that the theists have, is a very weak argument, because if I did die, I can't come back and tell you that you're wrong. And see, here's the thing. The art of being said, the Bible tells everyone to encourage themselves. God is not going to do everything for you. It's up to you. It's balanced. So does the Bhagavad Gita. So does the Vedics. So does the Quran. So does the Kemetic science. So does Ifa. So does damn near every other religion. The Zoroastrians that's their major tenet. Think good thoughts, do good things. Everybody, those same teachings are universal. The real secret is that there is no secrets. Now, I don't want to be Jesus. See that whole and see Jesus ain't all that's cracked up to be, my guy, Roderick. Nah, because when that lady they brought that lady up who they claim committed adultery. See, my morality is bigger than his because I'm like, hold on, partner. Where's the dude who she committed the adultery to? Why are you just gonna stone her? You got to stone both of them. We need equality. Why can't you treat the woman as equal as you treat the man? Because that's bullshit that you just bring. See, I would have challenged them on that one. First, I would have challenged them on their equality between men and women. And then I would have challenged them on their own sinful natures, as they want to call them. You know, I would have never said whether free or bond man. I was like, no, there should be no such thing as a bond man. You know? And in the Gospel of Thomas, when he said, I'm going to make this woman into a man, Jesus is basically saying that women are less developed men. So he's still separating men and women as the woman being a lower caste. So nah, I don't want to be Jesus. Jesus ain't good enough. He ain't good enough at all. Humanity may be erased, or perhaps we'll ascend above to where we are conquering space. I hope so. I think there has to be an effort because, at some point there will be an effort to leave this planet if man survives long enough, because the planet won't be habitable for man. At some point, we'll adapt to changes, but at some point it becomes inhabitable. Period for carbon-based life. Why use the term app? Because we use it today. It's a familiar term that we use today. I'm not going to get into semantics about language. Like, why? Are you running around I live in Georgia. Am I going to call Alabama the Georgia Territory? Because at one point, Alabama and Mississippi used to be the Georgia Territory. So that would be like me saying that, oh, you shouldn't use Alabama because Alabama wasn't a term until they separated the Georgia Territory into a state. Those are semantics that are like, oh, these are my little inroads to try to go away from the actual conversation. Was it named after the Roman general Africanus? Possibly, more than likely. But it's the common name that we've been using that the world accepts for the last, what? How long have we been using the word Africa? I don't know. At least 500 plus years as a continent. Grand Rising Lisa. Hell, for all we know, the planet could end today. Actually, it's very possible. Y'all know that, right? Y'all know it's very possible the world could end today. Every year around this time frame, there's a good chance that our world, our understanding of the world, our existence could end today, especially this time of year. Does anybody know why? This is a curious thing. Just want to know, because I know I got to do something later on tonight that involves that aspect of it. It's a weird movie on repeat. I know I got way behind y'all again. That's amazing that other religions say encourage yourself to this because it's true. And I'm telling you, black man, oh, you're talking to black man, there is nothing wrong with believing in something not yourself, as long as you also encourage yourself. No, that's a good statement. You're right. Every religion does, and we should all everybody should encourage yourself. If you have a religion that tells you otherwise, you shouldn't deal with it. Do you know that Satanism tells you to encourage yourself as well? And that you should be law-abiding and treat your neighbor greatly, kindly? But people don't look, Grand Rising T, at genealogy through Noah. Jesus is not black because he comes from the Shem bloodline, which are Arabic. Jesus didn't come from the Ham bloodline or the Jacob bloodline, so he's not even white. He's an Arab. Matter of fact, the Ottoman Turks were the ones who said God restarted population with Arabs. If you looked at it from, if you believe in the Bible and you go from the Bible, then yeah, you would say that he's Arab. But you still had a mixing of people. You think Shem kids didn't have sex with Japheth's and Ham's children? If there was nobody else around, who else were they having sex with? Who else were they repopulating with? They were repopulating with each other. So you're still going to have different mixtures of people. Yeah, the fact that the Bible is trying to say in second chapter that a woman comes from a man's rib, which is bullshit, then it puts women in that situation. Or you can look at that symbolically and say that since she came from the rib, she came from the side of man, so she is equal to the man on his side, standing side by side, not behind the man. Now, she said it came out of his spine, then she's from the back. So symbolically, I can flip that and say that she is equally side by side of man. But in Genesis 1, it said it made men and women at the same time and told them to create everything. Neither one from either one. So white and black African conquered. Yeah. North Africans who were Arab and light skinned and Caucasian, they went into sub-Saharan Africa and conquered as well. Yeah, like how people like to, oh shit, am I that far behind y'all? Like people who call Kemet, Egypt Kemet. Yeah, depends on which one. Some people get mad at me because I say Egypt. You call it Kemet. We call it Egypt today. I go back and forth depending on whichever one comes out my mouth first. I'm not African, I'm copper colored. You do know that there are copper colored people in Africa, right? You do know that. Now, if you were born in America, no, you're not African. I can say you're an American. So there are white people, Caucasians, who were born in Africa. They African. Jesus is us on the, Jesus. Okay, I'm gonna let you have that all by yourself. You know what you're talking about for yourself on that one, guy. Is the term Africa used in the Bible? So how do you know what land biblical characters come from? You have to study land and the maps, not just Revelation and Isaiah, wouldn't you say? You would, and you do. And they tell you what lands that they come from, and we have identified those lands. And we call them by different names today than what they call them then. We still know where it's from. Those lands, then the Middle East used to be. It's still, well, we still use the term the Levant, but it's the Middle East. What is Israel? Those land masses and borders is changed constantly have changed through different conquests. But we still know the land to which they're talking about. And it wasn't Africa. What we call Africa, it wasn't Africa. Even though for a time the Asia Minor, it was called Asia Minor, uh, and then for another time it was called considered part of Africa, and then it wasn't. So it goes back and forth, and people can always pick and choose when they want. Oh, well, I'm starting from this time frame. That doesn't validate a point. No, that story is not about us. That book ain't got nothing to do with my ancestry. Nope. My people come from West Africa. Ain't got nothing to do with it. Ain't got nothing to do with them. Some parts of the Bible are literal. Some parts are allegorical. It depends on which part you're talking about, who wrote it, when they wrote it, and how they thought about it. The writers of the Old Testament thought they were writing a book that they believed literally. The Old Testament is not symbolic to the writers of it at the time frame of Hezekiah, Josiah, and Ezra. They were writing what they thought was literal history of the Hebrew people and the creation of the universe. So just because people look at it allegorical today doesn't mean that that's how they originally intended. And that's what I was saying earlier, that you got to step out of your perspective and look at it from the perception of what those people who wrote it at that time frame were thinking in their writing, if you actually want to understand what the heck it means. Because I guarantee you, 200 years from now, whatever you think the Bible is representing today, if it's still around, people are going to have a different interpretation of it. Yes, Kemet is from a different culture, different from modern day Egypt. It's very different. But that's like, so should we change the name of the United States? Because we're different now than we were when it was first called the United States. So we're always going to have that. That's always going to be something. That culture is always changing. And see that thing. Europeans and Romans stole the bastardized Christianity. How can they didn't steal Christianity, they made it. They made Christianity. What are you talking about? The Romans created Christianity. Right? Vespasian purposely began the process that created Christianity because they were looking to create a docile version of Judaism that didn't have a militaristic Messiah that would disrupt the Roman Empire. So he wanted a docile version of Judaism. It didn't work, but that's what he wanted. That's why Constantine, 300 years later, was still dealing with the same problem that Nero was even dealing with. Nero called Vespasian in to shut down the Jewish revolts because the Jews were looking for a Messiah that would conquer in the physical world. And Vespasian, understanding that you got to conquer a group's story in order to conquer the people, began the process that would create Christianity. But Christianity was created by the Romans with the help of some Hellenistic Jews, mainly Josephus, Philo, Herod. They got it started, and then it continued to proliferate from them. I like it. He knows nothing. What do you know, sir? Show us something. Teach us something. Right. It's called Egypt. Nobody calls Germany Deutschland. Even when I lived in Germany, you didn't see people didn't refer to it as Deutschland. Well, let me correct that. When they were speaking to me in German, they would call it Deutschland. But when they spoke to me in English, they called it German. But there was even some, when they were speaking in German, they would still say Germany. So you got a few people here and there that would still say Deutschland when they were speaking in German and would say German and would refer to the country. Lean not to your own understanding. Whose understanding am I supposed to lean to? Yours? because everybody's understanding within this Bible is their own understanding of their interpretation of this deity or the interpretation of others of this deity. Do you realize that until you get to origin, the idea that the Bible was inspired by God was not a concept until Origen wrote it, until he came up with that doctrine. And let me get the year of that. When did Origen of Alexandria exist? Oh shit. Okay. So until 356 BCE, the idea that the Bible was inspired by God did not exist until then, when he reinterpreted the writings in Titus, which we know Titus didn't write. I mean, Titus is not written by Paul, but it was written by a disciple of Paul. So no, bro. You are currently leaning to the understanding of people who who came up with different doctrines throughout time of this book. Oh hell, no wonder. He wanted them, y'all. He said that the United States is Egypt, which is Babylon, aka Babyland. What the fuck? I'm not trying to be mean, Roderick, but America is not Egypt. How is America Egypt? Please tell me how America is Egypt. Please. Okay, I can read it. I have read and studied Noah's sons. Don't. Okay, I know this is your first time, I think, being here, Art of being. One thing I can't stand is when people say, "Oh, go study this, go study." No, say it. Say what you got to say. Because Noah's sons are not the creation, the repopulation of the earth. All right. The Chinese dynasties were still going before, during, and after your Noah flood story. The Minoan society, we have evidence of the Minoan society before, during, and after your flood. So people still already here, right? The Kemetic society, the Egyptian society, never had a break before, during, and after the so-called Noah story. There are so many civilizations that we have proof of that were in existence before, during, after this flood. So you can study Noah's sons all you want to. Those are propaganda for people to create, for the Hebrew people to create an understanding of the people who are around and make themselves feel special. But archaeologically, Noah and his sons did not populate the earth. No. Oh my gosh. Come on now. You gotta come. I don't just study your Bible. I study archaeology, right? It don't match. When you study archaeology, you see how flawed this Bible is, and then start to understand that it is just propaganda. The Old Testament, for the most part, is just propaganda. Roger, you actually are not contributing much to this conversation, sir. Yep, we all come from some tribe. I know he said baby land. Did not care if his skin, but was definitely whitewashed. Yeah, I mean, it was whitewashed. Look, most people make God, whatever God or people believe in, they usually make that God look like them. That's why you got, I think it's Japan. They say that Jesus came to Japan, had a whole family, and he died, and they got his tomb in Japan. And Jesus is Japanese. Utah is Judah. I'm just going to throw out a statement. And you know what? Georgia is Iceland. And Alabama is Antarctica. I can do that too. Florida is Sumeria. See, Florida is Sumeria, right? That's why they call themselves the Seminole Indians, because they derive from Sumeria. And Israel is a people who have souls, so nobody else have souls. What does Israel mean? All humans have souls. The repopulation of cabbage kids, aka clones, were here. Now you're talking about clones. How did clones get here? Who had the technology to make clones? Everybody don't have souls, prove it. I studied Genesis. What are you talking about? We did a whole series where we read every doggone word of Genesis and broke it down. Genesis, for the most part, is a copy of the Sumerian story. If you go and read the Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh, you'll be like, damn, that's the same thing that's in Genesis. Just a little bit different. There's some differences, but pretty much very similar. You know, it's like this is this person's version of Cinderella, and this is that person's version of Cinderella in the modern age. And so it's like, oh, we don't take and borrow. Why not study Genesis? We already did it. Got a whole series. It's called what is it called? We do it on Tuesday. It's called What's Wrong with the Bible? And the whole playlist on YouTube for Genesis. Right, Mesopotamia, Nineveh, Assyria, the ancient land names. As a historian, checking my sources and vetting that correct. Right. Like when they found the ancient city of Nineveh, so it's like, no, we shouldn't call it Iraq. It's Babylon. All right. A lot of native tribe called America Turtle Island. So we on Turtle Island. We call it a continent. You can't claim that this ain't Turtle Island because the people, 600 years ago called this place Turtle Island. Some of them call this place Turtle Island. That's what they call it. Who are you to say that ain't what it was when that's what they called it? That's like 200 years from now, somebody said, oh, that ain't Georgia. That's called whatever it is in 200 years. Because I don't think America will be around in 200 years. I think it's going to split. But we going. But for the time frame that I'm living, this is Georgia. Yeah, and see, you know what? Yoshi, you're right. That's right. He's saying that you don't have a soul, white boy. I was arguing with this guy earlier today. Well, we weren't arguing. I was just explaining to him. He was saying that black people can't be racist. I was like, no. Racist is an individual who is against someone simply because of the skin tone. Racism is a system that is against a group of people because of skin tone. That's what you sound like, Roger. You sounds like a racist. Souls have humans. We can agree on that one. You trying to say that, and I know you're gonna say that white people aren't humans. So, actually, I'm offended by that statement myself, Roderick, not just that whoever you're talking to, because all of this is a meat suit. Ooh, this is interesting. If I bury a Bible, Torah, and Quran with science textbook for 500 years, not even, and dig it up, all those books, the science would wait a minute, and all those, and dig up all those books, the science will be the only one to not change. For the most part, you're right. And the only way the science would change is if a deeper understanding of something came about, of science that's provable, that you can test. I don't know who you calling a boy, but one thing we don't do. Let me explain something to you, bro. We're not rude on this channel. We're not going to be disrespectful to people on this channel. If you cannot have a respectful conversation with people, you will get blocked. Is really that simple for me. I don't mind if we disagree. We should disagree, but you should be able to express your disagreement respectfully. Calling another grown man boy, and as a black man, you should feel some kind of way about calling any other grown man boy. Like, me and Paul disagree on a whole bunch of stuff, but Paul is never disrespectful, and neither am I towards him. Hold on now, Valentino. Well, Jesus never existed, period, whether you put a black or white face on it. Now, a lot of the ancient black knowledge is referenced within Christianity, and it stems a lot out of Ethiopia. What information out of Ethiopia? Most of it comes from the Sumerians. It didn't come from Ethiopia. Ethiopia was polytheistic, for lack of a better term, until 330, until the Axiom Empire converted to Christianity in 330. You had some Jewish exile. Well, some Jewish people went to Ethiopia, so you had small sects, but Christianity didn't come to 330. Christianity is a Roman religion. It is not a whitewash religion. It's a Roman religion. It later on became more European, but it's straight Roman, based on the Levant. Man, why am I hate that because my eyesight is not doing me great today. Somebody writing something that's going on in the world today. If we're still here 500 years from now, that breed would think is something mystical shit went on. Probably would. If we're going by the Bible, it speaks a lot of Africa, but in terms of African, was not used till much later. It really doesn't speak as much about Africa, about what we today call Africa, as much as it speaks about the Levant, because Egypt is the only place in Africa that it talks about. It doesn't talk anything about sub-Saharan Africa. It doesn't talk anything about West Africa. So it will be more accurate to say that it talks about Egypt. That's why in the beginning of this video, I said that it shouldn't even be considered African history. It should be Mediterranean history, because it speaks, especially in the New Testament, it speaks more about Rome than it does about Egypt. But it's primarily centered in the Levant. Yeah, genetically, we're copies of all the DNA that came before us. Says Kemet. Site sources, I'm not sure. I'm way behind y'all, so my apologies for being this far behind. Thank you, Ben. Let me try to catch up. The whole temples in the Grand Canyon was a hoax by the Arizona Gazette. It was a hoax. It's never been. There is not one shred of evidence that that's proof. That'll be kind of like how the Bible is the only book that talks about some of these stories that's going on, and there's not one shred of historical evidence. So is the Grand Canyon thing. No, I did just answer that one about that one. There aren't any. There's no evidence of that. No, Christianity was not stolen by the Romans. The Romans created Christianity. Just because, okay. I like when people say that, mind you, every nation has a story about a flood, but that doesn't make the Bible story about the flood the actual real story about the flood. There's actually there is a scientific explanation for the flood, which negates everybody's mythical flood story. It's temples in the states you just named. Those are okay. So when did we do the pyramid? It was last week we did a live about why there are pyramids all over the world. And I explained it in that video. But to give you a brief on that one, is that one, the pyramid is the most likely shape that you will build anything in from around the world. It doesn't take somebody teaching you to build pyramids. But if you're in construction, at some point, pyramids are the style of building that you're going to build. Now, those pyramids have multiple functionalities. Some were for ceremonial, some were for burial, and I accept that the pyramids in Gaza were more than likely a power plant. Those were not for burial nor ceremonial, because I've been there and there's absolutely nothing in them that would suggest that. But Tesla showed that they were most likely power plants. So just a mind share would have created that. Now, they do have mythological stories about deities coming out of Egypt, coming out of the Quetzalcoatl story. And other people have stories about beings coming to them and teaching them how to build and irrigate land and farm and that sort of thing. And that derives from that would validate the Sumerian story, which they also built pyramids, and the Atlantean story. I'm behind, so you ain't got to keep saying explain, but I just explained that one. So it is not the Kemetic people that came and built pyramids in the Americas. Folklore says Jesus went to Britain, he went all over the place. Goddamn, am I that far behind? No, Art of Being. If he's what I think he is, no, they literally think that Egypt is America, not symbolically. If he's what I think he is, they literally think that the Mississippi River is the Nile River. I did a video where I traced the entire Mississippi River. It doesn't match to not the Nile. Well, no, there's some that say it's the Nile, there are others that say it's the Euphrates. And based on the ones that say it's the Euphrates, I traced that whole damn thing just to show them that it is not the Euphrates. It doesn't fit the Garden of Eden at all. Yeah, they keep digging them up. Like I said, pyramids are going to be everywhere. The ancient world, they would have built them. God damn, I got to catch up. But y'all saying stuff. I am speaking facts. The fact is that everybody built pyramids because of the soundness of the structure. That's a fact. That's an archaeological fact. There's also an archaeological fact that these cultures didn't have any contact with each other when they built those pyramids, when they built their different pyramids and temple mounds and all that. That is an archaeological fact. You read Genesis, but you didn't. See, there you go with that. That you keep typing that on my other videos, Art of Being. Yes, I did. I studied all the land masses and the genealogy, and they don't match up with archaeology. But like I said, you say that because I don't agree with you. Let me catch up. Georgia is full of our history before the Bible. Because there were people here. But it's not my history. If you depend upon what time frame you're talking about, and none of my ancestors was here in Georgia. Well, I can't say none. I have a few. Got a twinkling of Crete in my family. I think it's very possible that Egyptians could have sailed to America. It's been proven that their boats were seaworthy enough to do that. There have been items and things that have been found that looks like different people, like from West Africa, from Kemet, might have sailed here. But as far as relocating, those people that weren't relocating and building temples and all that. I'm going to ignore that one because I've already expressed it. Have a great day, Yoshi. Coach, a lot of people say that Jesus was a historical figure, but they don't put the miracle stuff behind his name. And I disagree with that because Black folks and a lot of people think Jesus is God. No, Jesus is not a historical person as far as the one Jesus, but historical as far as 4 different Jesuses being combined into the one. At a minimum 4, yes. Josephus speaks on 4 different Jesuses. This is Yeshua's. That each one of them, when you read what Josephus wrote about each one of those different characters, they are merged into the one. Grand Rising, Tommy. Oh. And it is not for me. I'm not trying to push you to one side or the other of the fence. You go whichever side fits your gut. Now, ancient quotes and things of that nature, yes, you can find those, but that's another thing of mind share, right? In every culture, and they wrote similar things and didn't have any contact with each other. You know, as far as like rules of morality, didn't have contact with each other, but seemed to have the same rules of morality. And even expressions of wisdom seem to have the same expressions of wisdom without having any contact. I'm trying to catch up. Which one has more misinformation, religion or Afrocentrism? I would have to think about that one and really go down and create a list. Shit. It depends on, and then it depends on which religion, because like the historicity of the Bible is all kind of jacked up. Yeah, that's all they knew, just the northern part. Right. That's why I say Egyptian history is not African history. It is, but it isn't. It will be more accurate to say Egyptian history is Mediterranean history, because all those countries of the Mediterranean histories merge together because of their connection with each other. Egypt never ruled the whole world. No one has ever ruled the entire world. and Egypt didn't rule here. And all those emblems of Egyptian emblems that are all over, it has nothing to do with actually Egypt ruling. And I'm not going to get into a conversation about this, but it has more to do with masonry coming out of Egypt and then adopted by the Europeans as to why you have all these Egyptian symbols all over the world. Because if that's your point, go to England. You're gonna see a whole bunch of Egyptian symbols. Go to France, you see a whole bunch of Egyptians. Hell, Paris is Per Isis, which is the worship of Isis. Does that mean Egypt once controlled France and England? But you'll see Egyptian iconography everywhere. Grand Rising Cold Level. Okay. Oh shit. I'm just gonna skip all the way down to catch up with y'all because I'm never gonna catch up. There we go. So I'm just at the caught up point. If there was something that you wanted me to go over again, that I just missed, because I'm never gonna catch up with y'all. Y'all typing too damn fast, and I'd rather be at the most current. The devil is not the serpent. The serpent was the wisest of all beasts, and the devil is a fallen, beautiful angel, a human figure, not a seraphim or a serpent figure. According to the Bible, that actually would be correct. Joseph, the serpent story is actually more relatable to the Atrahasis. I mean, not the Atrahasis. Yeah, the Atrahasis. No, the Enuma Elish. Sorry, which is the Sumerian story. Basically, the serpent is representative of Enki, and represents wisdom and rebirth and knowledge. So yeah. Revelation, see, that's one of those things, Roger, where we're taking Revelation and giving it a meaning that we would give it today. But when the book of Revelation was actually written, they were actually describing what they thought. They thought that the end of the world was coming during their lifetime because they believed that the end would happen within a generation. And they were actually describing world events happening then with the Romans. And they thought the Roman, like Nero, is the Antichrist. They thought that this two would be taken and one would be taken and one left in the field and all that stuff. That was the Roman Empire coming and taking and persecuting people. So their mindset wasn't this future thing that we have. But because it didn't happen, men changed, people doctrine and start changing it to give it a more esoteric thought process. Worship the same Egyptian gods, meaning the rulers in Egypt and the US are actually followers of Egyptian gods, and the Bible says this, so is proof of the Bible. Where does the Bible say that they're worshiping Egyptian gods, and that's proof of the Bible? That actually wouldn't be proof of the Bible. The Bible has so many vague prophecies and statements that you can pretty much attach it to almost anything. And they're not worshiping the Egyptian gods. It's what the symbols mean. Like the Washington Monument is a patriarchal symbol of a penis, right? It's from when ISIS put that on Osiris's penis because she couldn't find it, and then hovered above it so that she can get pregnant and then birth Horus. So it's the symbol of a big penis and male dominance. That's what that is. And you drive by many graveyards and you'll see obelisks all over the place. You go to the Vatican, there's an obelisk. You go to Paris and London and all these places. So it's male dominance is the symbol. Is what that symbolizes, but they're not worshiping Osiris. That's correct, Valentino. I'm with you on that one. I say that because the temples and the pyramids having serpent knowledge. Yeah, the serpent was always venerated as wise and knowledgeable and rebirth. Um, I heard of Brother Sanchez. I know you said that earlier. I know I used something about him is familiar. Egypt held a lot of knowledge. I believe the Roman Catholics have it in Europe, and they hold a lot of Egyptian knowledge and rule it to this day. I think so. I think so as well. I don't think they burned all the materials in the Library of Alexandria. I think that if you honestly, this is gonna sound mean, but I would literally conquer Vatican City just for the sole purpose of releasing every piece of information that is in that library that they don't allow people to get. Because I'm pretty damn sure everything from the Library of Alexandria is in that guy. They got it. And when you go to a museum, you're only seeing about 10% of what they got, what they really have. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Louvre, the British Museum, if the Smithsonian, if they all got some information. I know they do. I can tell you this. When we left Kuwait for Desert Storm, we emptied a lot of the castles and the museums in Iraq. And there were literally tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets that were taken. And it was split between France, England, and America. If they did that at that time frame, in what was that, 1990, 90 through 92, I am quite positive that they didn't destroy all that information when the Romans took over Egypt. You said it wasn't a secret. I asked what secrets. I didn't say nothing wasn't a secret. I know that there's information that is not available to everybody. If I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Anyone can make prophecies true if they got the time and the people to do it. Yeah, and you can. I can write some vague ass shit today that can be perceived as me writing prophecies. I know what them Masonic lodges know. I'm not speaking on it. Yeah. I like to hear what you got to say. Speak on it if you know it. If you know it, speak it. The prophecies of Egypt proves the Bible. Those Egyptian symbols are in Europe and the US can. What prophecies of Egypt that prove the Bible? The all-seeing eye is on a whole bunch of things, but that's Masonic. That is, and it's not worship. It is not worship. I can tell you this with 100% guarantee that those Masons who put those symbols in those places do not worship the Egyptian gods. That's not part of Masonry. The false apple that's supposed to be a mushroom. Are you talking about they ate a mushroom instead of eating an apple? We don't know what the fruit was. As far as what the Bible is talking about, they just ate fruit. They want to try and discover living forever like the Egyptians were so obsessed with this. This is why Egyptians mummify. Well, the Egyptian there's a difference between, are you talking about living forever in this body right now? The Egyptians were more concerned about living forever in the afterworld, in the afterlife, not so much living forever in this life. So when you read the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it's more about the afterlife, not this current life. So it wasn't the devil, it was the serpent. The serpent and the devil are two separate beings. Those are separate beings. Like I can write a prophecy that an asteroid is going to blast into us because nobody answered this question. But right now we're going through, I think it's I forgot what the the little field is called. But tonight, late tonight will be the best time if you want to see a whole bunch of shooting stars, as we call them, because we're going to be passing through we pass through this debris field every year around this time. So one day a big ass one gonna hit. Okay, you say Hiram Abiff. What do you know? Come on, what about Hiram Abiff? What about the great architect? Yeah, the all-seeing eye is about seeing, is about one. It's about connecting. You see, the all-seeing eye is. How about this? The Kemetix had the all-seeing eye, but so did the Buddhists, and both of them had them before they had contact with each other. And the Buddhists understood the all-seeing eye from the Indus, and the Indus had this at the same time that the Kemetix, before they had contact with each other. So they had this same thought process of of everything being connected through the third eye, the Taurus. Thank you, Orion. No, it's Taurus, I believe. What lodge are you in? Whence you came? That is popular Masonic mythology to say that Jesus was a 33rd. There's actually no proof that Jesus was a 33rd. Stonemason, yes, 33rd. No. Okay, I got you, Roger. Yeah, we're in the dangerous. One of them Taurus gonna hit. It's gonna be big. Yeah, on that, Roger, you and I would have to have a different conversation away from it, in private. You said the Romans were responsible for the creation of Christianity. Who do you think is responsible for the creation of Judaism? Actually, Judaism is a Judaism is a little. It's over time, similar over time, but with some information that started coming out over the last 10 years, I think that Judaism actually truly began as a sect that left Egypt after after Akhenaten was disposed of, and those remaining people of the Akhten crossed over into Sinai with their leader Ramosis, and then made their way to the hillsides of Canaan. And while they were there living, doing their thing as hill people, initially worshiping the Akhten, but of course they're being connected with other people. And as we go into the Bronze Age collapse, and the people from the coastal areas, the Canaanites and Phoenicians and the Shashu all came into the hillside and merged with those worshippers of the Akhten. And a couple of hundred years now went by. All those religions began to merge, and which later then creates the Israelites. And this is why a lot of when you read, if you look at it from the perspective of the Hezekiah and all them, when they're re-editing these stories, you can see that there is a polytheistic viewpoint of those ancient Israelites, and how the merging, and you can see how Yahweh and El they're separate, and then they come together as one deity, which is why there are so many conflicts within it, or contradictions in the Old Testament, especially. But then it's not until you get to Hezekiah in 700s that you start getting the formation of what would become Judaism. Yes, thanks. But Masons still use Egypt in their ceremonies, and they rule Europe, and this proves the Bible prophecy of Egypt and God's children. I don't see how that proves Egypt and God's children. And the thing about it, here's the thing, and I can say this because you can go and you can go, and if I'm understanding Roderick correctly, he can validate. And as I said before, y'all can go and buy Masonic books, the real ones that are actually used. You can buy them. It's not even held secret that you can't buy them. And when you do, you'll actually see that Masons don't use the Egyptian rites. Right? We don't. The overwhelming majority of what Masons use are Solomon. So no, then that would discount what you're saying, because they're not using Egyptian rites. They're using more is more Solomon than Egypt. So if I were to go ahead and give you that the Bible prophesies that, then it's still not correct. Exactly. Roderick, understand what I'm saying. We don't use the Egyptian rites. It was attempted. Count Castrago tried to get Masonry to go back to the Egyptian rites, but they were like, hell no, man. I think they killed him. Oh yeah, I would be outside in the late night, and I might actually get in the car and drive about 2 hours into the country, up in the North Georgia, so I can get away from the light pollution, so I can really see it. During this time frame, what you're seeing that's falling across the sky, I gotta look it up again, but there was this. It's the remnants of a comet that exploded. A big piece of the comet. Well, the comet exploded, and a big piece of it stayed and created this debris field, and the rest of the comet continued on. I forgot the comet's name. So we're passing through this debris field of when this comet busted up. Big chunks of it broke off and burst into millions of little pieces. But I forgot the primary comet name. Do you think the Greek Ptolemaic emperors who spread this religion, or did they simply translate some of the writings of the people who described as Israelites? The Greeks didn't create Christianity. It was the Romans. The Greeks just Hellenized their stuff and merged deities. So like they merged Ra, Seth, and Zeus together to make Serapis. Is it Seth? Oh, yeah. Ra, Seth, and Zeus to make Serapis. But the Greeks really didn't have much to do with Christianity. They only had the Septuagint created because that was one of Ptolemy's things. Ptolemy IV, he collected information, which was one of the things that made the Library of Alexandria incredibly huge. Because if you brought a book into Egypt, it had to be copied and put in the library. I cannot speak for Christians, but I assume that they don't deal with the all-seeing eye, because maybe it's Egypt, Eye of Ra, and Egypt is God's enemy. Egypt is the Israelites' enemy. It's not God's enemy. It's the Israelites' enemy. It's their God. It's their God, Yahweh's enemy. Oh, sure. But that God had the Canaanites were the enemies, and the Amorites and the Hittites and all the other types. Most Christians don't, but they're starting to. This is why Christianity evolves. It's always evolving. Always has been. All religions evolve. I see Christians walking around wearing this, and this used to be a Christian symbol for a while. It was called the Hand of Mary, right? But I see Christians wearing unks now. It's always evolving, and they try to change the meaning of it. Some say he is a vampire. Who was a vampire? Not as much as you think. Not as much as you think. There is not as much Egypt in Masonry. It just there's some big symbols. You know, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, and the obelisk. Really? That's it? Really? I'm trying to think of anything else. But everything else, no. It's mostly Solomon. Oh, well, he's your Lord, Pearl, not ours. But well, not most of the people here. But it's because we this is a channel where we deconstruct from religion, so that's why I was bringing it up. And it's a sticking point for a lot of people when they're trying to keep both. They're trying to deconstruct, but then they stay stuck because they get all Afrocentric with it, and there's really no reason to get Afrocentric with it. That's one of the stories that. Now you said his student, uh, Judas Didymus Thomas, is also said to be his brother. So depending on which story, but it did say that Thomas did go to India. That is the claim, if he ever existed, but we don't know if he existed. Um, the Illuminati didn't. They use so a lot of people, a lot of groups use Egyptian symbols because of its antiquity. Man has this thing, and this is the problem. This is what we're talking about here. Man has this thing where it needs to grab hold of some antiquity to validate itself. This is the reason the Old Testament is written the way it's written, because it's looking for antiquity. This is the reason the Romans were grabbing hold and mimic a lot of the Greek stuff, because they're looking for antiquity. So when these organizations were created, they reach back and grab certain antiquities that have honor in them. And so they utilize those symbols in order to uplift their own organization. And Egypt is one of those places that has amazing antiquity. That is there. You can see it. And so they use it. And at one point, other than, I think, Egypt is one of those dynasties, one of those empires that lasted incredibly long time. And people like to grab hold of those, especially. This is why people still are holding on to the Roman Empire, because it lasted, the Roman Empire lasted 1,000 years, because it gives them a feel of an antiquity. What is his name? The whole Merovingian line, they were reaching back trying to grab antiquity. Thank you. I should have known that. The comet was called Enki. Spelled differently than the Sumerian Enki, but Enki still. Thank you, Orion. I appreciate that. Only people who are cynical or non-believers will entertain this idolation. This isn't converting actual believers. There's more important fights, such as family unity in Black communities, unity amongst our counterparts, love, etc. This channel, I'm not trying to convert anyone. This channel is called Why I Left Religion. It's not engineered to, I don't do it to convert people. That's not the point. My videos are for people who have already made that decision or are on the fence and they're just seeking information. I have no desire to go and convert anybody to anything. Believe whatever you want to believe. I always say, Antonio Diaz, if being a Christian keeps you from killing my son, stay Christian. If you walk away from Christianity and you went out and became a murderer, stay Christian. I care less. But my channel's not built I don't do this for that. Someone who is a mason, aka a carpenter, uses symbols, measurements to build, hence symbols and degrees. Egypt is the standard, period. Thank you, Valentino. Thank you. And you're absolutely right. And Roger will validate that. Oh, he did, exactly. Yeah. And they were masters at building, at construction. The Bible speaks of Egypt and who they are in this world today. I'm gonna say genius for God to put it right there. I'm not buying that. You're not proving it, art of being. You're just making statements. Doesn't deal with sheep just like this. You're just making statements now, art of being. You haven't shown anything that says that, oh, it predicted this and that and third, you know. Can't see it, but you can make those predictions for everything. You know how many Christians are running around talking about, oh, the Euphrates is dried up. And you can go and look, and the Euphrates has not dried up. It's still got water. And it's been through cycles of drying and filling and drying and filling. It's not a prediction. Plus, it will be out of order if it did. Plus, according to your thing, we have to have a one world religion, one world government, which we don't. And there has to be Antichrist and all these other things. There got to be some asteroids blasting thing. All the waters of the planet got to turn to blood. And that's all the waters. Not just a little red tide here and there. Got to be all the waters. So we got to have all that. Your right to swing your arm ends at my nose. Exactly. That's true. You can swing your arms all you want to, as long as I don't violate your nose, then I can't swing my arms. Right. And that's like, that's my tenets. Do whatever the hell you want to do, as long as it does not take away from somebody else's rights to live their life, to live in happiness, doesn't take away somebody else's freedom. So if what you want to do, you can't murder somebody because that person has a right to live. You can't violate a person. That person has a right to not be violated. And then I take it even further. I don't want to be disrespected, so I try my best to not disrespect anybody. I desire people to give me consideration, so I try to give people, I really give people consideration. Sometimes I give people too much consideration, but I try to give people. I want people to have patience towards me, so I have patience towards other people. How I live my life is really based on how I want the universe to come back at me. So I'm not going to go rob anybody because I don't want somebody coming in here robbing. Now, if you come in here and you try to rob, you just told me you want me to shoot you. So, okay, I'm going to shoot you. Just how it's going to happen. But you're right. Your rights end when you try to violate someone else's rights. And so I agree with that wholeheartedly. And so I don't deal with trying to bring people over from Christianity, like, oh, you need to become like me. No. Mm-mm. Now, if you're listening, I would say probably about a third of the people who watch these videos, that might be too much. I'm going to say a quarter. About a quarter of the people who follow my channel are Christian or Muslim. But my channel is not directed towards them. It's not. But they feel the need to be here and have something to say and fight against it and try to convert me. I'm like, nobody's trying to convert you. You're not going to convert me ever. Ever. I have walked away from this religion. I've been gone from this religion for decades now. Decades since I was about, mentally, I was out of this religion roughly around 25, 26 years old. Completely physically, where I didn't even participate, didn't deal with no bullshit, right around my later 20s, 29, 30. So you just woke up and this popped on your Facebook. Yeah, and I get people who tell me, like, why is your stuff popping up on my Facebook? Stop letting your stuff, like, dude, I do not control this algorithm. What makes you think I'm trying to find you? Not making statements. I thought you read the Bible. Okay. Art of being. This is that part about respect. Okay. I have read this Bible probably more times than most Christians. I have studied this Bible deeper than most pastors and apologists and all those. All right. You killing me with this statement all the time. I just don't agree with you. And I have like evidence and facts as to why I don't agree with you. Just because a person doesn't agree with you does not mean that the person haven't studied it. Have you not seen scholars for any subject matter who disagree? Would you say that neither have studied or have read? No, you wouldn't. You would not. What are we at? So tomorrow is Numbers, what, 11 and 12, I believe, for what's wrong with the Bible. We have started from Genesis and we had Numbers 11 and 12. Deuteronomy talks about Egypt and what they would do to God's children, enslave them a second time, who enslaved our people, Egypt, aka Europe and US. Are you Hebrew Israelite, Arda? All right, because firstly, when you look at the step to Egypt, Deuteronomy 28, 60, 63, 68, does not say anything about selling away on ships. Doesn't at all. It just says that the children will be disobedient because all they have is a fragment. They don't have the whole thing. It just says the children will be disobedient and they'll be cursed or something like that. But that's it. Doesn't say anything else. Later on, it was added that it says that they will be sold away on ships. And they will go to Egypt. And it has the article that means Egypt. Doesn't mean symbolically Egypt, but it's Mizraim, right? So it means the literal place Egypt. This is why the Hebrew Israelites are trying so hard to make America Egypt so that they can validate their story. But it's talking about Egypt. It says that they will sail away on those ships. It says that they will go there and they will sell themselves into slavery. Okay, you're definitely not Hebrew Israelite. Okay. But it says that they will sell themselves into slavery. The transatlantic nor the trans-Sahara did people individually, not by somebody who captured them, not by somebody who they lost in battle, not by somebody who traded them for guns, but they will individually desire to sell themselves into slavery, and there will be no buyers. There were plenty of people, because so the people in the trans-Saharan and transatlantic, individually were not trying to sell themselves. Their captors or who they lost the battle to, they tried to sell them, or they sold them. And in the trans-Saharan and the transatlantic, there were buyers, plenty of buyers, whole hell of buyers, right? So Deuteronomy 28 does not fit the transatlantic slave trade in any form or fashion. There's nothing about it fits the transatlantic. This was just a Hebrew Israelite concoction to justify saying that the people, the black people in America are the true Israelites because black people can't let this book go. And so in order for us to hold on to this book, we got to now say that we the true children of Israel, the true children, the true Israelites. We're the lost tribes. No. Archaeologically, it's been agreed upon that when they came out of Babylon, so northern Israel was conquered. The southern tribe of Judah was not and remained a vassal state, right? There were, I think, 2 tribes in Judah, and the other 10 were in northern Israel. Those were the ones that they took the best of them and took them into Babylon. And then they came back with Ezra and tried to rebuild the northern Israelites. But those tribes, those 10 tribes that was up there, merged into the southern tribes of Judah, or were the ones that were still there when Ezra got there. There's no such thing as lost tribe. They just lost their identity of their tribe, but they merged into the other. And I don't know, some of them did try to escape into Ethiopia and that, but that's few. That's small groups. But no, Deuteronomy don't fit. Egypt is Egypt, not America. Grand Rising Douglas. So we're gonna be the last one. I agree. We're gonna be the last. And you know what makes people let go of this Bible more expressly, more expeditiously, is economics. Economics. The most prosperous nations as a whole are the least that hold on to this book. If the U.S. is not Egypt, then why do those that rule the U.S. and Europe keep and hold Egyptian knowledge and symbols? You tell people by their symbols. U.S. put pyramids on the dollar and the owl eye. Well, the owl and the eye, because they're Masons. It's symbology that's used in Masonry. It ain't got nothing to do with Deuteronomy. It's symbols in Masonry. That's why they're there. And if you can tell a person by their symbol, then am I a Janus? Do I practice Jainism? I don't practice Jainism. Am I Kemetic science? I don't practice Kemetic science. And this ring of Anubis is because I just like Anubis. Who are God's chosen people? Well, according to the Bible, it's the Israelites. Who are the Israelites? Shit, they've been dispersed. But there are no chosen people of God. If this God was real, if this God was a true God, a real God, a God of actual love, there would be no such thing as chosen people. Because I got 3 kids. I'm gonna say that Lincoln is my chosen. Simone, that's my chosen. Sydney, that's my chosen. That's bad parenting. There's no such thing as a chosen people. Chosen people, again, is propaganda. Understand that every city-state during that time frame believed they were the chosen people of their patron deity. So, like the Babylonians, when they worshiped Baal, they were the chosen of Baal. When they converted to Marduk, they were the chosen of Marduk. You know, you're always the chosen one of your patron deity. And since once the Israelite people adopted, because at first they were the chosen of El, then they become the chosen of Yahweh. And now El and Yahweh are merged together, so they're the chosen of, of the same deity, of the El and Yahweh, which is a merge. Right, the Egyptians, the Washington Monument is an obelisk, which is a symbol of masculinity. But it's not Egypt. Because for the same thing, then you can say England is Egypt or France is Egypt, because you can find just as much there. Now, Sunny Israel, like I said to other people before, if you can't come in here without the insults, you can get banned, because we don't need you. Because I will take some insults towards me a little bit. I would take 0 insults towards everybody else on here. But yes, I'm starting to fall behind again. In the Old Testament, chosen people were treated badly in today's standard. Chosen people. Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, Andy, damn near everybody in the Old Testament is treated badly in compared to today's standard. I mean, would you make your virgin daughter who is, raped by a man and she's not betrothed, marry her assailant? Hell no. So the Masons who rules America just use Egypt symbols everywhere just because that does not make sense. No, they use them because they're Masonic symbols. They were Masons, so they're going to use their Masonic symbols in order to, when they're setting up their government, when they're doing all those things. And you got to think about it. They're using, even better, thank you. I'm glad you said Rome also uses the eagle. The eagle is not a Egyptian symbol. For the Egypt, it's the hawk. It's not the Egypt. But the Romans use the eagle. If you really want to look at it, America and most of Europe is a combination of Egyptian and Roman symbols that aren't one, they're separate. Because like what you just said, the eagle, that's a Roman symbol. The eagle is not a symbol in Kemetic, in the Egyptian. It's the hawk. You can't tell your wife you no longer believe. Man, that's a hard one, bro. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. All the people enslaved God's people and use Egypt symbols just like Egypt enslaved God's people in the Bible. You're looking at recent history of enslavement. In recent history of enslavement, sure. But when you look at enslavement in its totality, when before when you look at the enslavement that went on in India, there are no Egyptian symbols in India. There's some Roman symbols, but there's no Egyptian symbols. And they enslaved people there. And they enslaved the Indians. Indian people are actually in Southeast Africa. They brought Indians over to be slaves. That's good for you, Michael. How you doing, Michael? Grand Rising. Michael is a constant contributor to the commentaries on the videos, the regular videos. Most of us didn't. Most of us, when you're going through and you're deconstructing from the religion, that's one of the things you come to a realization that you didn't realize how far gone you were into that religion. Appreciate that, Chris. When I do get the RCA dog head tilt. Oh. Yeah, Egypt used the falcon. Like Horus is a falcon. It's a falcon head. It's always a falcon head. But like the Mexico enslaved people, they use the eagle and the serpent. They don't use Egyptian symbols at all. In the enslavement that was used in Mexico and Central America. Yeah, if people understood these symbols in their true form, then the veil would be lifted. In the original form, let me not say true form, in the original form of the symbol. Because you got to go beyond when it was where it's changed. Like the swastika doesn't mean hate. It actually means unity and peace. People just want to be chosen. They want to feel something. Yeah, people want to feel special. It is a supremacist mindset. That's why I call it religious supremacy. They found cannabis in one of the temples in Israel that belonged to the tribe of Judah. Yep, they found cannabis in a whole bunch of different places. Found cocaine in some of the tombs of the Egyptians. See, you say that black people were enslaved by Egypt in the Bible. Egypt had slaves of all colors. You can find there were Caucasians who were enslaved in Egypt. Nope, it says that there will be no buyers in Deuteronomy, but people got bought. Look, slavery is broader than the transatlantic, trans-Saharan slavery. There have been slaves in almost every culture, right? Now, were they treated the same as they were treated during the transatlantic trade in the last 500 plus years? No, they weren't being treated like that. They were treated differently. But so you can't, it's a difference when you look at those slavery. It was just part of society. But people kept their names, they kept their religion, they were able to have families, they were able to work side jobs and make money and get the hell out of it and all that sort of thing. Let's go use the feathered serpent and the jaguar, Quetzalcoatl, and I can't say that last one. I thought they had an eagle on their flag as well. On their flag, they have an eagle holding a serpent, right? That's why I say they use the Roman one, because on their flag, I think, isn't it an eagle hold with a serpent in his clutches? To me, black people ain't no special than anybody else. We're all the same. Your consciousness is what makes you special. The priests will burn it. And cannabis was, I mean, a lot of these things that we classify as drugs today were used for spiritual purposes. We just made them, you know, people are always going to make it recreational though. Yeah, but people like to focus on Egypt either having Hebrew slaves or black slaves, and they had slaves with everybody. Even when the black people were running Egypt during the 134 years that the Cushites ruled them, they had black slaves then. Oh, I'm about to in a minute, Jose, because it is 3:21 and I gotta run some errands. So I'm about to. Right. Chattel slavery was a different type of the most other types of slavery. So prostitution with slavery was a close second. Yeah. Right. Consciousness can't be enslaved. Even though I don't like the guy, well, I don't like him in his early years. Let me say it that way. I didn't like Gandhi in his early years. If you ever research Gandhi, you will like, I don't like that. In his early years, he was racist as hell. He was a product of his environment, but he was still racist. I don't care. But he did break free of that. So from what you can tell, but he said something to the format of shit. Now I can't get it right how he said it, but it was like, the moment the slave stopped believing he's a slave, then the shackles fall off. Right? Meaning that you may physically be a slave at times, but you don't have to ever mentally be a slave. And I think that's how they go. And I think it was Gandhi. I'm pretty sure it was Gandhi, but I think that's how they go. All right. But, are you riding the NASDAQ down? Oh, the NASDAQ going down today? Good, because I need to buy it back in. But I need to buy it in at a certain number. Right. I know in his early days he was racist. Okay, so that was Gandhi. Oh, if you pay taxes, you're a slave. I'm working on not paying. If I can get, now I don't have to pay sales tax anymore, but I got to figure out some other ways I can not pay any other tax. I won't pay no taxes. Whoa, that's hard, Yoshi. I thought you had to go back to work, Yoshi. When Gandhi's wife got sick, he refused her medicine due to religious belief. But when he got sick, he took medicine. You know what? I'm not even surprised. I know, Yoshi, you might be too young. I don't know if anybody on here is old enough to remember this, but Nancy Reagan and Reagan, stem cell research. No, that's evil. That's wrong. Oh, Reagan got sick. Oh, we need to put more money in stem cell. All of a sudden, she becomes a champion of stem cell research. Yeah, people can be against something until it's time for them to need something. When you're, well, see, actually, as a 100% disabled veteran, I'm not actually, there's something I got to get so that I don't have to pay sales taxes. So I can skip out on some sales taxes. Oh, you, all the Indian freedom fighters who you know were all Anglophile elitists. Yeah, I heard that. I read that part about them too. And then what they were doing in, I think Zimbabwe or Zambia, the fuckers were cruel. It actually works. Okay. I'm guessing you're talking about the sales tax thing. I've been putting around and not getting it done. All right, but I gotta go. It's been 3 hours and 25 minutes. You know, we normally stop at 3 hours, but I gotta run a couple of errands before traffic starts because I do not drive in traffic. So I'm gonna get the hell off of here. So I appreciate you guys. Today has been a very riveting conversation. I love when we're going back and forth and we got, different mindsets. We all get a little bit better. Something new that we may not have heard of. So I enjoy that. Please continue to share the channel and subscribe to the channels. You guys have been great at doing that, and I greatly appreciate it because it literally makes it work, makes it go. So I appreciate it. You guys have a good one. Just inbox me, Roderick. Because I seem like you're a brother. And that's the thing. As long as we all learn something and keep moving forward with that. Tonight, I don't know what time the torrid media showers start, but if you're into that kind of thing, stay up late tonight. Go look at some shooting stars and all that. I don't know. Maybe Wormwood is gonna hit. No, I just playing. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. And I am going to shoot some more videos and y'all need to watch those and share them later on today. Bye.